Welcome to the Fullcaster Podcast, episode 11. Our guest today is Kyle Hayner. Kyle is the owner and founder of his Hayner racing team, but most of all of us here in SoCal and beyond know it as HRT Driver Development. And I got to be honest, my big thing is I dig the clean white and blue suits they have. You know, it kind of takes me back to look at the logo and apparel. And all. It reminds me of the Williams cars, Williams F1 cars, like what, early to mid 2000s or something like that. Mm-hmm. I think we had like Wampab and stuff like that.
It was just an awesome blue and white.
Yeah,
that was it. Yeah.
No, I love those things. Anyway, we're going to chat with him, of course, about the team and a lot more here in this episode. But first, Dirk, we got the BS session, a little bit of current events. How about this podcast thing, huh?
It's going pretty good, man.
It's freaking fun.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Man.
And we've gotten some good feedback from it lately.
Yeah, we're having a blast doing it. And as you say, getting some really good feedback lately. I mean, if you're tuning in now, you know this is the first of the 2-week gap. We took a week off, and did we take a week off last week? Where are we right now? I don't even know. No, we did not yet. This is
technically the first week off. Yeah, we put out the Beach Center episode last week.
Man, oh man,
this one's our first skip.
Man, we just got back to work, and everything is just rolling right now and molding together, and that's kind of why we're doing the 2-week deal, because this stuff is so fast. When this comes out, I suppose, it'll be 2 weeks at that point, because today's Tuesday. That's what my brain's at. So, yeah, anyway, obviously the podcast thing is fun. It's a heck of a good time, but it's a bit of work. And, trying to have it every week would be a bit tough, like we had talked about before, so we're going every 2. But we're still going to try to have some little bits of content, we're talking about putting, like, clips out. You know, we obviously do the GoPros that we have at every one of these episodes. But to try to put clips together with, the actual audio we get from the mics is a bit of editing work.
Yeah.
But we are going to try to start putting some clips together, putting those things in the in-between weeks that we don't have new episodes coming out.
Have some content filler.
Right. And then we're also going to try to do is put the entire episode, not split into halves, but the entire thing on YouTube. And then they've got a deal on there where you can actually add chapters. So what I'm hoping to be able to do there is, look at certain stories or whatever. We always start with the same stuff and kind of have those chapters in there. So if there's a specific thing that you liked about an episode or whatever, and you want to go back and listen to that one thing, you'll be able to maybe find it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But and these things have been a hell of a lot of fun. We still got plans for some Facebook Live stuff when we had talked about trying to do it at Pro Kart, and that thing kind of got shut down with us having to be here and whatnot. But we get things back rolling here. That's the plan, is to have some Facebook Live shows again. Obviously try to do some stuff in Vegas like we talked about. And
yeah, I mean, it was tough us opening back up. Now we have to do a different schedule with going every 2 weeks. Yeah. But it also opens up a lot of opportunity because people are here for practice, events. We can grab drivers and, different people from different teams and have the chance to sit down and talk with them for a bit, whether it's doing this or a Facebook Live kind of on-site stuff. So.
Yeah. And what's been really neat about it too, right, is, I didn't move down here until 2011. You got into the sport shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
And we just don't know karting in the area. So anytime we get a chance to chat with these guys, it's kind of that, you'll look back into the history, if you will, the local history, and sometimes beyond.
Yeah.
The 90s and the last 30-ish years or so, 20, 30 years. So that's what's been so much damn fun about these things. And, that and getting a chance to hear little one-liners from you is some people's favorite part. What's going to be kind of fun about today's episode is we actually have someone who'd be arguably a listener. We've joked
I think
lately.
The first time.
Yeah.
First listener we've had on here.
Joke with some of the people that, hey, have you heard any? And like, well, no. And we actually talked to Kyle at Willow, and he was like, dude, I'm loving this thing. So, getting a chance to have him on the show here today is going to be pretty damn cool. And, I think that's probably the best segue we're going to get. So let's go ahead and hit end on these current events, and let's bring on our guest for the day, Kyle Hayner. Come on over, bud. Kyle Hayner, buddy, thanks for coming on over here and joining the show.
Oh, man, I'm excited.
A long-time listener, eh?
Yeah, long time, since the beginning.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to be here.
Dude, no, it's cool. We kind of joke about it in the current events and whatnot. But it is cool to have someone who actually has listened to some of the episodes. Obviously, I guess some people, it would have been pretty easy for them to find out about it if you know about us. But how did you find out about the Fullcaster podcast?
Instagram. I saw your
cool.
smiling faces, and I think the first one I found was Casey Cook, and wanted to hear what he had to say.
Oh,
and,
nice.
Chimed in, and then just kind of built momentum from there. And I found myself listening to the podcast, working on go-karts, and man, I tell you what, that 3 hours goes by pretty fast listening to you guys.
Nice.
Yeah, not much work gets done, but it flies
No,
by.
actually, I'd plug my headphones in and get to talk karting, even though I'm not saying anything.
Right.
Nice.
But get to listen to the different perspectives on their approach to the sport, and man, it's like hanging out with friends while working on go-karts. So,
And speaking of working on go-karts, I assume you're going to do a bit of that as the head of your own team. But why don't you tell me a little bit about that? Is that your day to day? Is that the 9 to 5, if you will? Is your own team?
It's become that. It's not at all what it was intended to be. It started off more or less as a joke, but it's definitely become kind of the main focus.
How does the HRT Driver Development team start off as a joke? How does that work? How do you do a karting team as a joke?
So I
Probably
went
a lost bet or something. If you lose this bet, you got to go start a kart team.
Well, no, man.
Bullshit.
It just, I think all of us have one thing in common. That's we do stuff we love, right?
Yeah.
So I started off. I went off to a race. It was a F100 race, and I just showed up for fun. I had an old KPV. I threw it together. I said, "Hey, let's just go see what we can do," and went out and did a race, and was very successful at it. And just that day, I had two people like, "Hey, will you show me how to do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then I came and did an LAKC race and had similar success, and had one person say, "Hey, you show me how to do that?" Yeah, okay. And I've been coaching.
Were those back to back? Like, did you do it in the F100 deal, and then a couple weekends later it's the LAKC, or was there time in between, or how'd that?
Yeah, there was about a month apart, maybe 2 months apart.
Okay.
I was just, and still to this day, I only race for fun. I hope that's the only reason anyone does it.
Right.
But I just kind of showed up for fun and to see what I could do, and made a few friends, and those friends were asking me for help, and it turned into something. And I was coaching on the side. I was doing a lot of coaching at the BMW Performance Center out in Thermal, and so sure, I'd love to show you what to do. And it became something where pretty soon I started having a conflicting schedule because so many people wanted to get some help. And at the time, I was just going to the track and playing. Right, it was just like me and a buddy, and we're swapping notes and helping each other out. And then I was like, well, man, someone's like, "I'll pay you for your time." I said, well, what?
Yeah.
It's a go-kart, but okay, let's do that.
So your 9 to 5 was the BMW deal, the coaching at Thermal.
Not specifically BMW, but yes, coaching, precision driving. So I actually did a couple gigs with like Alfa Romeo as a precision driver, doing different. I wouldn't call it testing because there was nothing like official about it.
Right.
But a lot of it was consumer type events that before we put the product out in public, they had to know what the cars would do. And I started working with different engineers at these programs, and fell in love with it, man. I've always liked cars, but having someone that you can talk about it with, I guess, a little bit differently, excited me.
How'd you get into that? How'd you get into the car gig?
And
I guess too, now that you're doing the HRT deal, are you still doing it at all?
I was up until about a year ago full time. Maybe a little bit more than a year ago, maybe about 2 years ago now. In general, I just kind of go where the vibe pulls me. I've always kind of been that way. And believe it or not, it actually started kind of as a joke also. So when I was, I think I was 16 years old, my old man was in the sport for a long time, still is.
Stu Hayner.
Stu Hayner, yeah. And the man, the legend. But he when he wasn't racing, he was doing a lot of the precision driving stuff. And so he was actually shooting a commercial at Willow Springs, or I think it was maybe the Horse Thief Mile, I think they call it.
Yeah.
He was doing a commercial up there, I believe, for Lexus. And I think I was like, 16 years old. And he's like, "Hey, we want to come to work with me today?" It was during the summer. I said, "Yeah, absolutely. See what Dad does when he's not racing." And so I went up there. And it was because it was a commercial shoot. Like if you wanted to be outside, you had to be in uniform. So they gave me a little clipboard and a little headset so that I could be like the pit lane guy or the pit manager, if you will. And so when the cars would pull into pit lane, I'd be standing there and I could watch, and that way I didn't, come off as a civilian. I was part of.
Essentially, you were an extra.
Essentially, yeah.
Started acting, apparently.
Apparently, yeah. So I'm standing there, and I'm there all day. We got there at like 5 a.m. I'm there all day, and I think it's about 3 o'clock. They took a lunch break. 4 o'clock rolls around, and everybody's getting back, and I'm standing there, and I didn't have my headset on, but I had the uniform on, and all these cars are lined up, and I think they had 6 or 7 of the pro drivers that were going to shoot this commercial. And the director doesn't know his ass from a hot rock, comes out, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And what do you mean? What am I doing? He's like, "Get in the car. We're getting ready to shoot." I was like, "All right."
Oh, no way.
16?
So I jump in the car.
Wait, really quick before you continue. Did you look 16 or did you look older, you think? Or he just
I was always told that I did. I
you
certainly didn't feel that way.
Were you
Okay.
sporting the beard?
I was not
16?
sporting the beard. No. Man, this is new.
I wasn't sure if it was a
This is
throwback.
new.
So a combination of him not really knowing what's going on, it seems like, and then you looking older, it kind of just worked out.
Well, and I've been around motorsports since I can remember, right?
Right.
I was born into the life of motorsports, so I kind of know the walk, the talk a little bit.
Yeah,
and so I'm standing there just like, acting like I belong, and I think he just got confused, and worked out to my benefit because I got to jump in a car, and I don't know where this confidence came from because I just jumped in and I said, "All right, let's do this."
And your dad's in one of the other cars, right?
He was actually, so there was a line of I believe 7 or 8 cars. He was in the first car, and I jumped in the second car. And so there's a camera car at the front of the line, and they're driving around the racetrack. And the whole idea was to just get the cars at different angles in a race battle, if you will.
Right.
And
We're not going out there setting track records and stuff
absolutely
like that.
not.
It's definitely lower speeds, and it's more about, what's the word? Choreography.
Absolutely. So, I grew up in karts. And so the one thing we become comfortable with in go-karts is sitting on the ass of someone in front of you and not even thinking about it.
Yeah.
So the director, I remember we have radios in the cars, and he's sitting there yelling at the cars behind me to do it just like cars 1 and 2. These guys have no problem. Like, they're riding right on the ass, and there's, inches between us.
And does your dad know?
No idea at this point.
Really?
All the windows are tinted, so you have no idea at this point.
Is your dad the other car behind you?
He's car 1. So
Okay.
he has no issue with me on his bumper, and I have no issue with being on his bumper.
Nice.
There's everybody else, you can tell they're a little bit timid with putting these brand new, actually like prototype vehicles inches apart
Kyle's
at
over here
speed.
like, not my car, not my problem. That's what I
Yeah,
say.
exactly, right.
Like the rich white kid mentality, just like not even thinking about it, So, but yeah, we're inches off each other's bumper, and I'm just having a blast doing this. Like, I wasn't even thinking about it. There's no pressure to it, which is probably why I did well at it. And
It'd be scarier to pull off in the middle.
absolutely,
Director,
yeah.
take your ass to
Yeah.
to
Yeah, well,
launch
they
it.
kept shooting all these angles, and we pull in, and I like get out of the car. I'm all excited. Well, the other driver's standing right there, and you could tell that the
the guy who's supposed to be in the car.
Yeah.
supposed to be there.
Oh shit.
Well, my dad's boss is standing there, and he's like looking back and forth, and he puts 2 and 2 together that I was the one in the car, and he goes, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, sorry," And he goes, "How old are you?" And I like I said, I think I was 16. And I go, "I'm 16." He goes, "Well, you're fired, but call me when you're 21."
Nice.
And
That's awesome.
so that's what I did. Is I called him when I was 21.
Get out. 5 or so years later, you're like, all right, I will. You do, and there's a job.
Yeah, I did.
Get
and
out.
he helped me out a lot and put me on an Audi gig, my first deal. And so I see what I mean. It kind of started as a joke, fell
Yeah.
into it.
Get out of here. That is cool. Well, so that's how you get into the car gig. You do
That's
that.
one
So-
way.
yeah. So tell
Kids
me about
taking notes, hopefully not.
Well,
but-
yeah,
Well,
tell me-
before
yeah.
we continue, what was your dad's reaction?
Oh yeah, yeah.
My dad. Oh, first of all, he got this look on his face like, "Oh, this is gonna come back on me."
Yeah, yeah.
But the second everyone was gone, man, he slipped me a high five. He's like, "That boy, that boy."
Nice, nice. Well, I mean, I suppose too. I mean, you're trying to. I mean, anybody trying to get in a cars or getting a gig. I mean, even if family members are already doing it, finding a way to do it and shit. That's doing it yourself right there, right? But that's got to be for a dad to be like, it's unorthodox,
Right.
but well done,
That's
sir.
one way to do it.
Yeah. So there's joke 1. your second joke is the race team you start. So again, how does that kind of work out? You go out there and you start driving go-karts and whatnot. People start asking you to help out, and you're already doing some coaching. But how does a team form from that? From just going out there,
we got to the point where we were overbooked on days. Meaning, like I started off just one-on-one coaching, and it was more or less for fun. I didn't want to charge a lot to do it. It was like, I've got Saturday off, of course. Like, I'll come out and help you out. And it got to a point where it became almost like a bidding war for my time. Great problem to have. And so I was like, you know what? I can have you guys both on the same day. And then it became, 2 became 3, 3 became 4, and I think we're at 24 drivers now total.
Wow.
And I was like, well, let's slap a logo on this thing. Let's see what we can do. And honestly, it was just a part-time gig. That's all I looked at it as. And,
when did this start again, roughly?
Officially about 2 years ago, but really I would say like the whole coaching portion, I think it was 4.5 years ago. But the team itself is about 2 years old, 2.5 years old.
It's like 2015-ish. You're starting to put things together, but HRT gig has only been rolling since 17, 18.
Yeah, the F100 race I believe was at the end of 2014.
Gotcha.
2014 was the year I got back into karting. I feel like I've always been a part of it, but I strapped in and went for it again.
See, I remember that too because not that particular race, but I do remember just all of a sudden you're here and you're running and whatnot because like I said, I got here in 11 and I remember seeing a Kyle Hayner with a helmet on or like that, and then all of a sudden this new guy's towards the sharp end, and I'm like, well, who's he? He's
I've gotten that reaction quite a bit actually. And it's, I think it's easy to look at it from that perspective. There's a lot of work behind the scenes. Derek, I don't know if you remember, I was talking about it the other night when the cement blocks were like my best friend.
Right, yeah.
Because I used to come out to the track and I was like, I want to race go-karts, but I definitely don't want to get my butt kicked. So after work, I'd come and bring a go-kart out here, and if I could squeeze in an hour or two, and I had no one to help me lift my cart, so I'd use the cement blocks to help me prime my shit up and put in as many laps as I could because, like I said, I didn't want to get my butt kicked. So
and that was awesome. All in the LEKC race. Was that X30 that you did after the F100?
I did. It was before X30. It was the Leopard.
Gotcha.
I did Leopard and PRD.
Nice.
Yeah.
I remember the one-off LEKC race you did in X30, and it was you still have the suit, but the cosmic suit.
Mm-hmm.
The purple and blue on it. You started on front row, and it didn't end well.
Oh man, that was
and that was on the old course before I did any of the changes and stuff.
That was a very sad day.
Yeah.
So
I remember seeing you test all the way up until that point.
So I saved all my pennies for that year.
Beginning of the season, this happened like a season opener. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it was the season opener. 2016, I believe.
Okay.
And man, I saved all my pennies. I got a brand new go-kart, which was something I'd never had before.
And this is still pre-race team then at this point. Like
this is coaching a few people, but yeah, pre-race team for sure.
It's not HRT official yet.
Correct. It was the HRT was just an entity I was using for tax purposes at that point.
Absolutely.
And that's what paid for my racing. And I got to a point where I saved all my pennies. I was like, man, I'm going to do a full year of this stuff. Like, I could do this, And I had heard the LAKC was the local place to be. And so I was like, man, if I go all out, like, for sure, I can win, like, half these races, Our ego's just exploding. But anyway, got a brand new go-kart, my brand new purple and pink suit, and, magenta and blue. And
fancy stuff.
I went all out for that race, man. I hired mechanics, was going to run data for the first time. Never got that far because I had to rebuild the go-kart between sessions. But, started on pole or off pole, I think.
Okay, it was front row for sure, though, yeah.
And, learned what it's like to run with the big dogs in X30. And, man, they don't lift for nothing. So folded that go-kart really quick. And luckily for me, I was packed up, ready to go home. And Ryan Perry, actually, I don't even know if he knows how much this helped, but he came over and he's like, hey, I got some old spindles. They're straight, and he offered me, he gave them to me for a reduced cost and helped me get back out there. And
nice.
We finished up the main. I was actually, to be honest, it was one of the most fun mains I ever had because I had to start 39th.
Yeah.
And battled my way back, I think, to 11th or 10th. And in
Kyle
16
Hayner's
laps,
okay.
that was fun.
Yeah.
That was very fun. Yeah.
Not too bad. Not too bad.
When you're one of the guys to beat and you have an issue like that, you have to start from the back. You're like, I can either be really pissed, which everyone typically is to a point. I can be really pissed and stay that way during the race, or I can be like, you know what, I'm faster than 3/4 of you guys, and I can have a lot of fun with this race too. You know?
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where if you're stuck in that situation, right? I mean, certainly you're going to be upset at first, like that it happened. But at that point, once you flip the switch that, all right, we're going racing still.
Yeah.
You start at the ass end of the world, you can only get better. It's only going to get, forward. And I remember actually throw a guy, Eric Thompson's. He'd done a lot of work with Andy Saisman and whatnot. And he would always say, get half. You just, whether it be a heat race or whatever, just get half. Like, that's the goal, right? Especially like if you have a bad qualifying or something like that, or chain or DQ, whatever it is. You start last in the first heat race. Well, go get half, and then you can get half in the next heat race, and so on and so forth, right? To always have that carrot and, trim it down. You don't need to get them all right now.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, certainly
One
the
step at a
mentality. Yeah. Once you get that mentality of, all right, let's go, you can either get, and if you're going for points or whatever, right, you can get super aggressive and a lot of times actually get yourself in trouble. But if you're cool, calm, and collected and you just get after it, it's certainly, I would say, a lot of fun in hindsight. Like, it's fun doing it, but you really realize how much fun that was once the checkered falls.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
You're just digging, you're just doing business. Checkered comes out like, man, I just came from last to whatever the hell I am right now, and that was awesome.
Yeah.
That was a hell of a lot of fun. Unless you get wrecked on the way, and then.
Well, man, it's as fun as it is to win races. I think the most fun events that I've had in my life were when I was incredibly uncomfortable in a position where I was like, man, like, this might be it. Every race is my last race. You know what I'm saying? So,
Man.
So I just, stay confident. And for me, I've always picked the guy that hit me. I'm like, okay, where is he at? I got to beat him by one position.
Man, and hope he's not first.
Well,
it's hard to do one more than that.
If Matt Johnson's listening, there was a race I did out here. There was a race at LAKC where we got together in qualifying of all things, and then we got together again in the heat. And at that point, you're always given a choice, right? Are we going to fight back, or are we going to use that anger as fuel and charge to the front? Well, and I told him right after the race, thank God he was in the lead, because we had to start last, and if he was fifth, we would have finished fourth. But he was in the lead, so we chased him down, and we ended up beating him.
Oh, wow.
And it's just every lap, where's Matt at? Where's Matt at? Okay, he's in the lead. Got to get him.
Yeah.
And that's what it turned into. So.
It's amazing what carrots will do for you. A little bit of incentive.
Oh, isn't it? Yeah, definitely.
Which is actually ironic because Matt Johnson in his episode, right, we're talking about carrots a lot. Like, he needs, whether it be a season or, a goal, he needs that thing out there. And yeah, carrots are huge. Let's hit the rewind button in a big damn way. We just talked about you, how you get in cars, how the team started, whatnot. How did you say you're, racing's in your blood? You grew up around that, but what's that? How's it get started? Like, how do you get that bug that just goes, yep, I know what racing is? I mean, if you were born into it, right? At some point it went and it clicked. Like, this racing thing's all right.
Honestly, I can never remember a time when it wasn't. My mom tells me stories. She'd go to the Long Beach Grand Prix to watch my dad race, and the second the race car fires up, man, I just start kicking in the womb. And, whether it's true or not, that's what she told me. And I can honestly not remember a time when it wasn't just the absolute coolest thing ever. I know I found old photos of myself with my dad racing on TV, and I'm sitting there in a stool with a plate, and I'm driving there along with him. I've got his old helmet on.
Oh, cool.
And if I wasn't doing that, man, I was playing with toy cars on the rug and making little tracks, with paper and rugs.
Little Hot Wheel tracks.
Dude, I used to put books underneath the rugs to elevation change.
Oh,
obviously.
nice.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah. I never thought of that as a little munchkin.
I'll tell you what.
You ever see those like they had those mats? Like, it's like just a mat thing that you put on the ground, kind of like a rug or whatever, but it was like a
city or something?
Yeah, it's like a city. And
I would block off corners and make a road course out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I would do a little bit more, and I would take a permanent marker.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'd make street circuits out of them. So my parents would buy this mat, brand new, and you could color it because that's what you're supposed to, or you could just turn it, black with pit lane and all sorts of kinds of stuff that's not supposed to be there. And then I just flip the damn thing over and make one from scratch on the backside, and then host races.
Yeah,
The Hot Wheel cars.
Oh man, I used to cut like little curbs out in a piece of paper, draw them red and white, or blue and white, yellow, whatever, depending on which track they were at.
Oh man.
And then I'd tape them to the rug so we had curbing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Actually, that also reminds me of. It's supposed to be the Kyle Hayner show, but now it's the Mike Smith show here. No, I used to take not little. I would take paper bags from like. See, kids, before plastic bags, they had paper bags in supermarkets. But I would take those, and I'd take 2 of them, and I would tape them together, and then like take like straws and make like roll cage or whatever, and I'd build these cars out of these 2 paper bags, and I'd make like 2 of them, and like do all these kinds of things, and make like what I thought was like a race car. But then they'd hit a little bit, and they had a little bit of structure to them, so they'd be like damage, and they'd do like a pit stop and crap like that. And then you remember the little cereal boxes, not the full size, but like the little ones, little singles.
Yeah.
So that would be like that'd be the Corn Pops car, or the Frosted Flakes
cool.
car.
I love it.
And I'd put on, after you eat the cereal out, I keep the box, make little race cars out of them.
Or you keep the cereal in and they wreck hard.
Oh, nice.
nice.
Yeah. Again, I don't have the kind of thought processes that Kyle does. I could have much better races. Look at the debris coming out of the back of this.
The elevation's awesome that you thought of that, to put books
man.
underneath that mat. That's cool.
Brilliant. Anyways, so you're as a munchkin, just a little guy, watching Dad race. I mean, thinking about it, kicking Mom when you're inside the womb. It sounds like all kinds of stuff.
Oh man, everything. It was. It got to the point where I got in trouble in school because I took the bigger erasers and I took a pen and drew numbers on them, and I was erasing them in my desk, and teachers were like, "Kyle, pay attention." And I was always getting in trouble for talking too much.
And you're like, "Well, say something interesting."
Let's go faster. This is not. I just wanted to go fast. That's all it was about.
And when did you turn that desire or whatever? When did it actually turn into you actually get behind the wheel?
Well, what's funny is I was just observing my father do it all the time. Right. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to the races with him, and I got to during the summertime. When I didn't get to go with him, I would watch it on TV. And if it wasn't him, I was watching. He always laughed, but my favorite race car driver was Michael Andretti, not my dad. Always frustrated him a little bit. He definitely became my favorite, but in the beginning, it was Michael Andretti, because I couldn't talk. But,
That's funny.
But I would watch IndyCar, I'd watch NASCAR. It doesn't matter, man. I'd watch it on TV. And so my dad, he's like, okay, well, he's obviously as obsessed as I am with this. And so I think I was 3.5 or 4 years old. He took me up to a racetrack in Northern California. It was called Rattlesnake. I don't even know if it's around anymore. But Rattlesnake. He took me up there to drive. I mean, you got to imagine I'm 4 years old. This is before cadets. They're like, well, we got to fit him to this cart. We'll see if it works out.
Yeah,
and
what year is this roughly?
I think 94.
God, that was
93
before,
or 94.
Yeah, before kid karts altogether. Like,
Yeah.
they're not even, I mean, they're certainly not in, production.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so you're in
I was in a full-size cart. Couldn't see over the steering wheel. Like,
And
I'm just sitting
not
there
even
with
a cadet.
Not even a cadet. It's a full-size Emic. And my dad put me out there, and I'd been observing this since birth, right? Just watching and watching and watching. So I didn't understand the differences. I just understood what it should be like.
Right.
So I remember them shifting and the way the engine would sound. Like it would engage, and then it would disengage when they'd shift, right? So I get in this single-speed Yamaha, and damn it, I'm going to shift this thing. So I would throttle and then lift and then throttle. And my dad took that as, just doesn't have it because he keeps lifting.
Right.
But I was like, no, I'm shifting. Like, that's what I'm doing. I had no idea they were reaching down. This is before onboard cameras, right? So I didn't know they were reaching down and doing things. I was just trying to simulate the noise. And so it was actually about a year after that before I got my first kart. Because, again, he didn't think that I had it. And he didn't think that I would wanted to do it. Because I just didn't seem that enthused about driving itself, right? I lifted. And I don't think that man's ever lifted in his life. So so it went about a year. Maybe about 6-7 months, and I remember we went to a race at Adams Kart Track. And
Like everybody else, it sounds like, in
Yeah.
SoCal at that time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he takes me to a race at Adams Kart Track, and I got to watch Travis Irving drive,
That's pretty
Colin
cool.
Fleming drive, and I was like, oh, this is like a real thing. Like I had known of karting and its existence, but I did not know it could be like a competitive sport.
Was that the first race you'd ever been to? A karting race?
The first one, at least to memory. Yeah. And I'd been around karts. Like when I was 2, my mom, I hope she doesn't listen to this. When I was 2 years old, my dad used to like take a shifter cart out, and I'd sit on his lap, and he'd go around Adams with me sitting in his lap. And that was just what we did.
Yeah.
So I had seen go-karts plenty, but never saw competition. And competition, man, that's where it was at. Like I saw that, I'm like, yes, that's what I want. And he saw that reaction.
And you're 5-ish, right?
I was, I was 5 years old. 5 years old. And I was probably right around my 5th birthday, actually. And that Christmas, I got like a few presents, again, being a rich white kid, I was expecting a big stack. And it sounds terrible if you don't know me, but I'm just teasing, teasing. And so I walked to the tree, and my brother's stack was way bigger than my stack. And I'm like, what? Get out of here. And my dad's
he was
like,
much better that year. He was just a better kid.
Yeah, he was. He was. So my dad goes, I swear I saw another present. Where was that? He goes, hey, Kim. That's my mom. He's like, didn't you see something? She's like, oh, I think Kyle, why don't you go check in that back room?
Just playing it up.
Just playing
Love
games. So I walk back there, and there's a number 85 Tony kart sitting there, which was Travis Irving's, which is funny now because we're, peers, but I was a fan of his when I'm 5 years old. He was the junior that I got to watch run. And number 85 Tony kart sitting there, and I never looked back since, man. I sat in that thing for hours, just sitting there, like leaning my head back and forth and
man,
getting ready.
Did you, just because it popped in my head as you're saying that, like you said, being a fan or whatever, what was it about Travis that you liked? Can you even remember?
Well, at the time, I maybe didn't realize this, but as an adult, drivers drive their personalities, most of them, if not all of them. And Travis Irving, now that you know him, it makes a lot more sense. But, 12-year-old Travis was a killer, man. He did not care.
Right.
And he was going to put his life out there as a 12-year-old, do anything he possibly could to win. And you feel that, man. You feel the energy when you watch that. And I just remember he was, whether he was going to be the winner that day or not, he was going to go for it. And you can't help but fall in love with that. At least I can't help but fall in love with that.
Yeah, the reason why I brought that up, and it totally makes sense, is actually I remember going to the Roundy Round track, Portland Speedway, and watch. My dad didn't race; he crewed. But for me, it was kind of like what you're saying, watching the cars go around the track. Whether it be limited sportsman stock cars or whatever it was. For me, it was the visual, like. What's the car look like? Does the car look cool, or how are they going through the corner? Is there flames coming out of that one? Does it sound cool? And that's the guy I'm going for.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that kind of having that kind of mentality, and I was, 8, 9, 10, something like that, in the late 80s, and seeing that, and then again, kind of having that same situation where I'll watch some of the kids here and I mean Munchkins, right? And you kind of watch which kids or which people they kind of eyeballs are locked on while they're out there, and who they're looking at, and just what that person's wearing, kind of that get up, and you can see them kind of get all excited. Or especially if it's a teammate or something underneath the same tent, you start seeing like
it's a cadet watching the senior driver, or something
whatever,
like that.
Their coach or whatever, that kind of thing. And you start seeing, they got the same number as the coach or whatever. Speaking of number, did you use 85? Was that
I didn't. No? I didn't. No. Well, it was a while before I raced. My first race, I don't think, was till the following fall. It was California State Championships. But watching my dad race, he was doing a number of series at the time. He was doing Trans Am and World Challenge, or before it was World Challenge, even Grand Am, American Le Mans series, and he had all these different cars. And his Firebird was number 32, and that's the one he beat everybody in.
Oh, cool.
That's the one I want, which is funny because he was like, really? I hate that car. Like, like it's fast, but like it's not one of the cool ones, It's just a Firebird. And I was like, yeah, but you beat everyone in that one. That's the one I want, 32. So 32 is my number.
That's cool.
Yeah.
God, I love those little stories and how you come up with that stuff.
Yeah.
So you end up racing about, what, 7-ish?
I was 6 years old, my first race. And
is that cadets then?
That's cadets. So I was tall. Luckily for me, I was tall. And
so you were 6-ish.
6-ish. Depending on who's asking. No, I was 8-ish, depending on who was asking.
Right.
Yeah. So
I think the statute of limitations is out on this one. I think you're okay.
Ryan said he was 15 for like 3 years to do senior. So
oh yeah,
everyone
yeah. Well, I've been in the same
that.
boat. I've been in the same boat my whole life. But man, it was actually I loved it. Because now you got to race against the guys you used to watch, and like. I remember the first time like passing one of the guys that I used to watch all the time. It was like, oh, I'm gonna do it. It's about to happen. It's happening. It's happening. Oh, now what do I do? But there was about almost a year there where my dad, and honestly, it's the greatest time of my life. I think every day, where like a short day at school, or even not, like when Adams used to have night practice, like my dad would take me out there on a Friday afternoon and night, and 2 or 3 times a week, man, and we would just hit the track and hit the track and hit the track. And he was like, okay, I think you're ready. And this was right, I think, late October of that following year. And
is he full on coaching, or is he also doing some kart racing himself? Or is
at the time, but this is before my dad was in a kart.
Okay.
My dad didn't touch a kart until a couple years later. Well, he started off in karting, but back in the 1800s.
No, so at this time, it is the Kyle Hayner show. It's all about getting the kid better.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, we literally go from that summer. We drove. Actually, it might have been the following summer, but regardless, he would drive. I got to go to his races in the summertime because the day at school got out, we'd hop in the truck and we'd drive east as far as we were going.
Wow!
And along the way, we were going to his races, but in between, we'd stop at a go-kart track, and we're talking Norway in Ohio, one of the badass track, or, hey, there's a little sign there that says go-karts. Let's turn in and go. And we stopped at every track along the way, and gave me some perspective, man. It wasn't just Adams kart track now. Now I got to see every corner imaginable, every elevation change imaginable, and, really set myself up for the first race, which was California State Championships.
So you're driving those when you're there, or you're just checking them out?
At that time, I was driving them.
Just driving.
I was driving.
Wow.
Yeah, anything we could, anything I can get my hands on. It wasn't about being the best go-karter. It was about being the best racer, best driver.
You got the cart in the back of the rig, or are you renting carts?
No, man. We did it the old-fashioned way, man. We threw a cart in the back with an air tank and maybe a tire gauge if we were lucky.
Yeah.
And my dad had like a little tiny toolbox with all of the necessities in there, and we tackled it, man. And we raced like that for a long time. There was a lot of ego involved for sure, but you show up in a little truck and you beat all these big teams, man. You felt pretty cool about yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Who the heck is this guy? Yeah, that's right.
So you're doing California State Championships, and that's like is that your first big race, or is it your first race?
No, it's my first race. Leave it to my father.
Very first race.
If we're doing it, man, we're doing it.
And was that cadets?
That was a cadet.
Okay.
6 years old. I remember showing up there, like not really knowing, and all these tents are there, and I'm like, oh, this is for real. And Joey Barros' sister, actually, I can't remember her name now, but Joey's sister is running the line, and she says something like, "Oh, hey, how old are you?" And I look at my dad like, "Oh,
what are we gonna say?"
He's eight. He's eight. And so,
what are you running? What is it?
It was a Comer 80.
It was Comer's back.
Comer 80.
Okay.
Yep. And it was, if I remember correctly, it was when it had first started, really. Back 94, 95. So when it first started. And I'm 8 years old.
Is Adams that they're running this
Adams
race?
kart track.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I think I can't remember, but it seemed like 35, 40 kids are signed up to this race. And my dad's like, just hang in with there, we'll do the best we can. And we ran old tires, like we didn't care. And
this is the Travis Irving go-kart.
Travis Irving go-kart. And so we go out
with a 32 on it?
With a 32 on it.
Come on.
Yes,
nice.
sir. Yes, sir. And we go out and do practice, right? And it's not looking very good, but, we're going to work on it. We're just one step at a time. And I wish I could remember what the message was, but my dad just gave me one thing. It was just like, hey, do this. No matter what, just do this. Every corner. And I think it was throttle as the wheel unwinds. Like, no matter what, just throttle as the wheel unwinds. Don't rush it, right? So then they used to, this is before live timing, right? They would post the results on the bathroom, right? They just like the old-fashioned way, right? Just papers. And my dad walks down there with me, and he starts at the bottom of the list, right? And just keeps moving his finger at the bottom of the list. Now we're like in the 20s, and he just keeps moving his finger up.
The transponder or whatever didn't work.
Something's broken out here.
Actually, I think it was, were they doing transponders back then?
I think there were transponders.
Because they
I
did
think so.
in '94 when I started racing. There was the Northwest States Championship, and it was a la the California one. It was kind of a traveling gig. It was the only race all year that they had timing, and but I can't remember a transponder being on the car. So I can't remember if it was
I don't remember that
transponders
part.
or they went off the stop. You got to imagine. I don't know, maybe because they did
With
hand
that many
scoring back
people,
then, right? They
yeah.
had like 3 or so hand scores. So maybe they had 3 stopwatches. I'd be curious, someone who knows more about that than I
Right.
do, how
Yeah,
they
me
actually
too.
did it.
Me too.
Anyway, sorry.
It would help us today when things go wrong.
Yeah,
Right? When timing goes down.
No kidding.
Everyone's like, oh, what do we do? Like, just get the stopwatches out, man.
How many carts do we have out there? Well, okay, times 3. That's how many
we
we
need 6 more people.
So anyway,
Anyway,
your dad is having a hell of a time finding you on these time sheets because you're not where you're supposed to be.
Right. And you could feel his energy like, oh boy. As he gets closer to the top. And I remember we were P2 and he lands on P2 and I just remember him going, oh shit. And he looks at me, he's like, well, now what are you going to do? And I was, I don't know. I don't know how to pass. I've never been on track with anybody else before.
Better lead into turn 1.
Yeah, I'm gonna
right.
try. I'm gonna try. So that was race number 1, and actually we finished 3rd. And the only reason we finished 3rd is we couldn't pass anybody. We just sat there the whole time. I ended up getting passed. I think I was 2nd for a while and got passed. And just sat there in 3rd because I didn't know how to pass, and I was kind of thinking about it, but never got that far. So
Yeah. And they probably weren't the kids you were watching, so you didn't have any incentive at the time.
right, absolutely,
Yeah, exactly.
absolutely. Yeah.
Smallest kid on the podium for sure.
Yep.
6 years old.
6 years old.
8 years old.
Right, 8, if anybody's asking.
That is a crazy way to get things rolling.
Yep.
Wow, that is nuts. And so, does that kind of kick things off? I mean, is that early in the year, late in the year, and do
That
you
was
run the rest of the
or November. That was November.
That's the-
Thanksgiving weekend is when they did the California State
Got it.
Championships every year.
Oh,
And
okay.
then the following season, what we call it is 96 or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. The next year, that's when you start running full season.
So we never did a full year. Everything. All my karting was based between. Well, my mom just thought I should do everything. Right? It's soccer, basketball, baseball. So karting kind of landed on the weekends that we had off.
Oh, and I suppose when Pops is around.
And when Pops is around, which
Gotcha.
which was a rare thing. So the combination of those two. So
Right.
it fit in between all of his racing. But I started definitely going way more often, right? I wanted to be as many of his events as possible, right? As an observer and just like take all this in. And I was such a fan anyway, so it was easy, right? Like I just want to go and hang out, like
Just be around it.
just be around it as a 6-year-old, which I think is rare today, but
These Hot Wheels cars are not cutting it.
not cutting it
Right.
at all. No, sir. Mario Kart 64 or whatever. Not
Oh.
even, that was before then.
Yeah.
Super Nintendo?
Super Nintendo.
Which was
Yeah.
the best version if we're
Yeah.
playing count
Let's,
there.
we have a whole new podcast for that argument. Yes.
So you don't actually do any full seasons. You just snag them as you can. And how long is that? I mean, do you ever get a full season in throughout?
No, never like a complete series of racing. I think at the most I ever did, actually it was 2014. I did 8 races.
So as a kid, you don't get a chance to do any full. Are you still trying to just hit up the big ones then? Or is it strictly how the calendar falls, and that's what you get a chance to go run?
I would say strictly calendar racing. And then my dad, when he wasn't racing, he was doing that precision driving work. And so it got to the point where it's like, I'm going to need to set some of that time aside because we got to do something that counts. Let's see what we got. And I remember, we'd show up, like I said, in the back of his truck and all these big teams. And they weren't nothing like what they are today.
Right.
But groups of people. And we were just like, we didn't even have an easy out. We just like pull it out and went to work. And it was all about driving and just focus on the driving. We didn't work on the go-kart. We didn't do anything. I think we changed gears once or twice, but...
Were you pretty hands-on, or was it you're just watching your dad do the stuff on the cart?
In the beginning, it was I didn't even watch that part. I was a student of the sport. So I literally, the second my session would get done, like I made the joke like I was the kid who rode the scooter around the pit. But that's actually untrue. I would go right to the grandstands and watch Travis Irving, Ricky Wildman, Chris Hill. These are names that probably no one even knows. But Matt Johnson, actually his dad, Mike Johnson. Watch Mike Johnson drive a lot. Jeremy Drew, Alex Barron, those guys, which were kind of fizzling out at that time. But I would just go watch and watch and watch and watch and watch. I'm like, okay, I notice he's doing this here. And man, I started to sort of formulate a pattern, right? Seeing what the fast guys are all doing versus the slow guys. And
so Dad's tuning on the go-kart, and you're trying to tune on you as best you possibly can, and learn as much as you can. So you don't get a chance to do any kind of full season stuff. You hit them up when you can or whatnot. Was there any big race, or was there anything you got a chance to go do that is kind of like, call it since there's no championships you can go for in a season-long gig, is there any kind of one-off, or is there one big event that just stands out, like that was the one, that was the big event for you?
Oh, absolutely. There's WKA Nationals in 2000. So we were racing off and on.
Back east then, yeah?
It was back east. And I think Florida was where it was at. And it was like the one race we're going to go all out for. Like, we're getting new tires for this one. And it was
spared
cool.
no expenses.
Spared no expense. We went new tires. And I was actually fully under the impression that new tires didn't mean anything at the time. My old man, his reverse psychology works wonders. And,
nice.
like, you don't need new tires, man. These guys, they need new tires to beat you. So,
you
like,
proved
just go get it.
Race one.
Right.
Yeah,
So
no
obviously.
Yeah. So, he had me convinced, man. And it wasn't until recently that I started to figure things out a little bit when I came back to the sport. But yeah, you don't need a new car, man. Like, these guys just need that to beat you. Like, you don't need new tires, man. They just need those to beat you. I'm like, oh, okay, I got this.
Dad pops over, was like, yeah, I was kidding about that.
Well,
I formulated my entire life on
I'll get back to it. But the day I figured it out, he was the one that was there. I was like,
nice.
we both I gave him this look, and he was like, what? But I'll get to that. But WKA Nationals, we drove to Florida. Actually, I got to fly, man. I felt.
Oh, nice.
We had a guy drive
the
the
race
truck
car
for
driver
us.
thing.
I did. I felt it so bougie.
Wow.
And we flew to Florida. It was actually it was a top cart, brand new top cart fresh top cart that my dad got me.
From what I'm remembering in that period of time, 2000-ish, top cart was like the cart
That was
you
one
wanted
of the
to
better
have
carts to
in,
have,
in
for
cadets,
sure.
certainly.
Yeah, in cadets. It was still cadets, and we flew out there. We had a guy drive our truck, and Travis Irving's grandfather, I think, built our engine, and he was kind of the motivator to go. He was like, hey, you guys are pretty quick. It was Robert Pardlesny and I. We're going to go and try to fight the East Coast the best we could. And so we get out there, and like I said, we got new tires for the first time. I'm like, ooh, this is what people have. Like, I got this. Like,
He's been seeing them on TV for years, sticker tires.
Yeah.
But he never asked about it.
Yeah.
Where's my stickers, dude?
Yeah, I just rolled my eyes when I said, like, oh, they need that to beat me. Just feeding the ego. But, so we go out there, and day one, we were so fast. We were like a second faster than I think the field.
Oh, wow.
Very fast. And I wish I could remember, like, clearly what happened. But
So you got to be like 12-ish. If we're doing
I was
the
10. I think
the
I was
math.
10 years old. It was
I
the
mean,
summer-
actual age, Kyle. not
actual
the-
age.
Yeah.
Actual age.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was 10 years old.
10, okay.
It was the summer before I turned 11.
Got it.
And so we're out there on Thursday, I think it was, and we're very fast. And J&J, which is now J3, Jim and
cool.
John come over, and they had some Comer 80 drivers that were competing against us, and of course, everyone becomes your best friend when you come up and
If
beat
you're
their
fast,
ass. So,
man, yeah.
everyone wants to be your buddy. So they come over and they started talking to my dad, and they had if I remember correctly, if they're listening, maybe they can chime in on this. But if I remember correctly, they had a junior cart that they wanted to put out on the racetrack. And so in exchange for some of like the information, they're like, hey, well, you want to jump in one of our J&J full-size carts, and we'll get it hooked up for you and put a KPV on it, and you go run junior too. I was like, or junior also.
Right.
I think it was junior 1. Or KPV 1 or HPV 1. And all right, yeah, cool, I'll do that too, whatever. And
Yeah, driver's like, more seat time, baby. Let's
yeah,
go.
Yeah,
Come on.
for sure.
whatever. It doesn't matter what it is, man. Dirt, concrete, doesn't matter. I'll drive it. But so they put that cart together too, and I was kind of nervous, gonna go up against the 12 to 15-year-olds. Again, I'm 10. They think I'm 12. Truthfully, I'm pretty sure they did think I was 12.
You carried this thing for a while.
Dude, I'm still carrying it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm actually 35.
Nice.
He's carrying it the wrong way. He never signs up for masters over here.
Yeah.
Give me a chance.
Yeah. Never, man. Never. I'm actually old enough to do masters
I
now,
know,
sadly.
and I want to see it. All right.
No,
Let's get back to
I
2000. All right, you're running 2 classes now.
So
You're plucked from the Comer ranks to go run another
Right,
deal.
and-
That's pretty cool by itself. That's saying something.
oh, dude, it was such a cool feeling, especially like this team, which J&J wasn't anything that J3 is now today. Those guys have grown tremendously, but someone noticed what? Like I wasn't.
That's storybook, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's cool.
So we go out in KPV, and this thing, like this is the first time I'm driving someone else's machine with someone else's engine, right? It's like a complete package of something else that people have been testing, right? We jump in this thing, and we were so fast. It was the same sort of like, oh shit moment. We were, I think we were like 6 or 7 tenths faster than the field, practice 1.
That's got to feel good too, to get into another kart and be. I mean, it's a totally different package than what you were just racing in that Comer, but you're like, oh man, I'm not sucking right now,
Well, it was a lot of validation came with that because my dad, I would never say we got like nitty gritty with coaching, but he was very, very strict with like, there's certain rules in driving. You follow those rules, you'll be okay. Even if you're having a bad weekend, like you'll be all right if you just follow these rules. And so
fundamentals, if you will, right?
Absolutely, fundamentals. And so, getting into a machine like that, like, all right, I'm just going to follow the fundamentals. I'm just going to do what Dad says. And he was right, man. I think a lot of drivers today, they memorize a way to do it, and they get really good at that memorization. But throw memorization out the window. Like, use your vision, right? Mm-hmm. Use your eyes the right way. Use the physics of the machine the way it's supposed to be used. And, like, on your worst day, you're still going to be racing in the top 10 probably. Maybe not at Pro Tour or things like that, but at a club race, certainly. And at Pro Kart, I think you can scratch a top 10 if you just follow the rules, man. Like, don't try to think outside the box. Like, just like stick with the process. And, and we did that, and we were fast as hell. It went, though, from being the best weekend of my life to the worst weekend very quickly. We ended up, it's a funny story, we ended up getting DQ'd after the first heat in Comer 80.
That sounds hilarious.
No, I'm getting to the funny part. I'm getting to the funny part.
So you're bloody quick, and Heat 1. DQ'd.
Heat 1 DQ'd for rough driving, which I led the whole thing. So it was like, like I didn't understand. I still to this day don't understand. But
where'd you start?
First,
get pole,
qualified pole, won the race, never got past
rough driving.
We got disqualified for rough driving.
Huh.
And I was like, oh, okay, not sure. Whatever. I just wanted to race. So it's like, oh, okay, well, now I get to pass people. Like,
yeah.
I didn't think there was no pressure.
For you being a kid, it didn't really affect you too much.
I don't want to jump over the story here, but kind of his point. And does Pops go like, this is BS?
Yeah.
No, my dad. There was a point where he got to that weekend, but
okay, I don't want to jump in ahead. If it's all in the story, I don't want to.
Yeah, it's in the story.
Okay,
so,
okay.
My old man, I think it's because he's a professional racer, and so karting is just karting. No pressure with this, right? We're doing this for fun, and so just go out and enjoy yourself. Like that's something that I remind myself every day. Like, man, we're just doing this for fun. So he was never like the dad that got mad, right? Never, as far as like result goes.
Mm-hmm.
He would say like, if you're not going to work for it, well, we're done. If you're not going to get good grades in school, we're done. But like, I mean, you're 5th today. Yeah, you're 5th. Say it out loud. You're 5th place driver today. Okay, I'm 5th place driver. Yeah, that's right, you are. Does it matter? No, it doesn't really matter. Did you have fun? I did. Okay, we're gonna do it next weekend then. Perfect. So we got DQ'd, and we had to start 41st or something like that, dead last. And we go into Heat 2, and there's a wreck on the start with like 20 karts, and they had like the punch off cone, and the rule was like you don't go inside the punch off cone. Well, when this huge wreck happened, I went inside the punch-off cone. I was like, I'm not going to bend my not brand new, but my first time I got a fresh go-kart. Like, I'm not going to bend this thing up. So I died down the inside, and I come out of turn 1 like in 18th or 19th, something like that. I picked up 20 spots because of this huge wreck. Got DQ'd after the second heat. I think I won the second heat, or top 5 or so.
These WKA guys are pretty draconian with these.
Yeah, no kidding, man.
These results.
Let me finish the story. I was very confused because it went from like the culture of here SoCal, like everybody's buddy, and I just wasn't having that same. I thought I was throwing it out there, but nothing was being reciprocated, at least on the East Coast. So I remember getting called. They had like a table of people that were in charge of disqualifying, and I'm 10 years old, and all these adults are sitting there standing in front of me or sitting in front of me, and do you have any idea why we disqualified you? I'm like, I really don't. Like, I really don't.
Yeah.
Could you explain it to me? And they're like, well, you jumped the start. And I said, oh, I don't believe that I did, but, you know. And, well, you crossed the start-finish line in 18th, the first time by.
We're definitely having timing at this point.
Yeah,
There's
for sure.
definitely
This is
timing.
2000.
Yeah.
They definitely had timing. They're like, well, you picked up 20 spots in one lap. I was like, well, there's a wreck.
But they're not watching the bloody race.
Right.
They are. But then they said, well, yeah, well, we noticed that, but you went inside the yellow cone, and that's not okay. And I said, oh, and my reaction was perfect. I didn't think about it at the time, but I was like, oh, okay, so next time I should just crash. That should be my option. And you could see them all like, put their heads together and like, oh, we
They're
can't
like,
tell them to do that. So
I think he's onto something.
yeah. So they actually
Write that in the book next
Yeah.
year. We're doing that.
yeah, so they actually scratched that. I did win the second heat because we start where we finished so they scratched the DQ. They gave me the win, and so I started on pole for the main event.
Essentially, you were avoiding a crash. Literally by the letter, yeah, you went to the inside. You're not supposed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But because it was the wreck avoidance, they rescinded it.
Correct.
Got it.
Yep. So we start on pole for the main. We green to checkered. We lead the whole time. Robert Podlesny was outside pole, man. It was so cool. Like the two kids that teammates. We came out of all these drivers, man. We're 1 and 2. We're in the same go-kart with the same stickers, like before sticker kits, but you know, we got the same patch sticker kits, and I think he finished P3, but man, it was just like the coolest feeling, and I get all wrapped, you know, done with the race. I did a parade lap, my first time doing a parade lap. Got to hold the checkered flag and stuff, and I pull in, man, and my dad just got this look on his face like, you did it, man. And right as I'm about to hug him, this guy puts his arm in front of me, puts his hand on my chest, and he goes, son, I need to talk to you for a minute. And I'm like, all right, what's up? I don't think I said what's up when I was 10 years old. But
Yeah.
We hadn't come up with that one.
yeah, that wasn't
Or
around
maybe
yet.
you did, and it's the first time.
No, I doubt it. I'm a follower, man.
Jeez.
So he pulls me aside and he's like, he said something about, son, you had a great race, but you're disqualified.
Jeez.
And I just remember, like, I thought it was a joke. You know, I was just like, oh. He's like, yeah, that bumper is illegal. And I was just so baffled. Still, honestly, to this day, I still don't really understand what it was. But they told me that the bumper that I was running, the rear bumper, this is before plastic bumpers, right? They're steel bumpers. He said that the point where the bottom piece was welded was too high.
Get out.
And my dad actually has the protest. My dad ended up protesting this. It didn't pass, but he ended up trying to protest. He has the protest letter still hanging in his office because he was just like so baffled at like the way. And it came down to they didn't want someone from the outside coming up and showing up their boys is what I always took it as.
That's what I was going to ask you, if you think it was a West Coast thing or East Coast thing and you being a West
That's
Coast
how
driver.
I took it.
I mean,
because
we're
Robert and
talking
I
about
just came and like whooped up on these boys.
Yeah.
We were 1 and 2 all weekend.
You would think with a protest like that, or excuse me, like a rule like that, there had been a measurement or something.
Well, that's what our protest was that if this is a disqualification, it should have been mentioned. If it's unsafe, why wasn't it mentioned on Thursday?
And why did I run all weekend
Yeah,
long
we're
with
at
this
Saturday night now. And
I've been in the top 5-ish pretty much all
Right.
weekend. And
I've
now
been
you
in front of the
guys-
I've been in
officials all
tech-
bloody weekend.
Yeah.
tech,
There you go.
right? I was in tech after every session. Like it didn't come up one time, and I mean, everything else I guess is hearsay. But there was someone that had been watching. They finished like 8th, I think. But someone had been watching, and they had put in a protest against me early on that they supposedly didn't find until the main came around.
Wow.
So, but man, it was discouraging. But okay, all right, we're gonna go back. It's still we got Sunday. This is when they ran like it was offset a little bit. So Sunday was gonna be the KPV race. All right, man, we're good. Like
So that was all the cadet.
that was all the cadet stuff.
Okay.
Now we're gonna go run junior, and we'll be all right, man. Just shake it off. Which I was a wreck, man. I cried the whole way home, and
Right.
so we go into Sunday, and same thing. We're real fast all weekend. We go into the main event, starting on pole, and
This is in the J&J.
the J&J
package.
cart. Yep. And Jim and John, or guess they're older now, but they were just young kids at the time. You know?
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, man, like, you got this, man. You got this. And so I was all pumped up and ready. And I remember, like, they cleared the grid out, you know, getting ready to start the race. They tell all the parents and everything to go off the grid. And they took one of those beams and they slid it under my rear tires, which I had no idea what they were doing. Again, I was 10 in junior. I have no idea what they're doing. They slide the beam underneath the rear tires. They're like, all right, son, we're gonna test your clutch, see when it engages. I'm like, oh, okay. They're like, okay, so when we say go, just drive over the bar. I'm like, okay. So they fire me up and they're like, go. I'm like, burp. And I go over the bar and they're like, you're disqualified. You got to start last. And I was like, no way. Like, at this point, what's going on?
Stuff's starting to stand out to you for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, all right.
Although you are really consistent.
Yeah, very good. Dude,
Yeah.
I'm like McDonald's, consistently shit. Consistently shit.
Wow.
But anyway, so they made me start last. And I was like,
Is it heat race again?
No, this is the main. This is for the final.
So, well, okay, if you don't mind, how did the previous races go? I mean,
We won the heats. We did
pole?
Pole. Yep.
So you were just
No tech
smoking
issues.
everybody.
Yep.
No tech
And-
issues in the heats or anything.
Well, I've always had a lot of success at tracks I'd never been to. I think because of the fundamentals. Like, it doesn't matter. First of all, there's being at Cal Speed, right? I've done a million laps at Cal Speed. Like, I know what I'm capable of, and I'm always going to try to push beyond that. And I think I end up getting away from the fundamentals.
Almost your
Yeah.
own worst enemy kind of
Absolutely.
situation.
Absolutely. I
makes
saw that
sense.
with Jake Drew at Pro Tour last year. Thursday he was purple and he was running his theoretical best times on Thursday. And I'm like, don't push any harder. I know that's hard to believe, but you're doing it already.
Yeah.
You can't go faster. Let's make the engine, let's perfect the timing on the engine.
You were doing good. Let's
Yep.
just work on the
don't
package.
do anything different. And I think he outdrove himself by Sunday. I think he ended up with a P6. He just outdrove himself by Sunday because he was like, nah, I can go harder. But don't, because I don't think you can go any faster than you already are.
Yeah.
And so having said that, like, anytime I've gone to a track that I've never been to, like, there's no rule. Maybe you lift there, but I've never seen this corner before, so I'm going to try to do every corner flat.
Yeah, and on the flip side, that's how a lot of out-of-towners, I know I've done it at places, I've seen other people do it when they come here or whatnot, where they've never been here before, and they find something that the locals have got stupid amount of laps, and they just never thought about it because you just don't do that. Well, tons of fun over here, just figured it out, guys, and it's because they didn't know any better, to your point. Like, we see it out of the Munchkins.
Right.
A lot of kids moving up. They don't know you're not supposed to be full throttle, but they come out of cadet or a kid cart to cadet. Bro, you're supposed to slow down right there. Wow, I'm like, what?
It
Stuck.
worked. Yeah.
Prove it.
Crazy, right?
Yeah. Well, and then, being the kid that got to drive cross country and do random tracks and see every little
That's got to help you learn, yeah.
everywhere. And what I learned is, like, this corner at Adams, right, is going to help me at this corner in Illinois, and this corner in Illinois is going to help me. And, like, I would just piece it all together. I'm like, all right, I'll just do that. And so when I go to a new track, like, I literally, the first thing I do is walk the track and really study each corner, right? I spent most of my years observing racing, so I can do that. And I just observe every corner, and it's the undulations in the road and the angle and my approach speed and what I can do. And, like, all right, I got this. And I think we showed that at Rock the Rio last year, man. We were second on the field for 2 days, and just because no one had been there, man, we can do that with the fundamentals that my dad taught me when I was 4 years old.
Let's come back to all that kind of stuff when you get back in the game and whatnot. Because I'm with you. Everything you just said about learning a new track and stuff, like, I go for a while on that one. Let's put the cherry on top on this 2000 race. So you go over the little stick. They give you a DQ, and you're starting last in the main.
I still haven't decided if we were really legal or not. That's kind of been on the wayside. Because I don't know. I got DQ'd because my clutch engaged or my clutch read too high.
And none of this was yours. It was all J&J stuff.
It was all J&J stuff, which they weren't going to give me something illegal. I doubt it.
Yeah.
Especially because we were fast and
Right.
they know it's going to get checked. So whatever, I went over the limit, which I think was 5,000 RPM at the time. So I had to start 44th. And my dad, I remember this is when he lost it. He went irate. He ran because he saw what they were doing and ran into pit lane. He's like, he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's doing, trying to get him to just pump the brakes a little bit so he could explain to me what to do. And they're like, oh, sorry, like, we did it already. So I had to start 44th, and my dad made him run the test again. They run the test again, and it did come back at like 5,400 or something like that. My dad's like, well, it's because it's hot, which as a kid, I'm like, I don't even know what. Just tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Just tell me what to do. So I remember we picked the cart up. They did something. They adjusted the clutch really fast. They put me back down, and luckily the previous race there was a yellow flag or a red flag or something, so it stalled everything.
You had a little bit of extra time.
We had time to fix it, and we ended up starting 44th, and I think we got a 12th out of it. But regardless, like I got to race, man. But that weekend, fortunately and unfortunately, at the time I looked at it as very unfortunate, but it really helped set me up for the future. But that weekend, I was like, Dad, I don't know if I want to do this. And his answer was good. Go to college.
Nice.
Good. Don't make the same mistakes I've made. So go to college.
Because the wind just got blown out of your sails right there. I mean, you went from the high of the high, like to your point, it was started out the best weekend possible to the worst weekend possible, all in one fell swoop, 2 swoops, if you will.
Right.
I mean, unbelievable. 2 classes, and just, that's pulling at the heartstrings right there.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yep.
And so as a munchkin, you're like, man, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And
well, you see a lot of that in big racing, maybe not to that extent, absolutely, but a lot of it's politics, right? And so you get to experience that only so much before you're like, I don't know. This isn't as raw as maybe you thought it was.
yeah, and as an alleged 12-year-old at the time, you know,
Right.
you're
Alleged 12, yeah.
but you're legitimately a munchkin.
Yeah.
And you're doing everything you're supposed to do. And for things outside of what you're either A, your control, or B, reality, these things are happening to you, and you're not getting the results you think you're supposed to get.
Right.
So how do you walk away from that weekend with anything but negative thoughts
Yeah,
on
for sure.
the shit you thought was a good time?
Well, especially, I'm observing every weekend I'm observing the sport. And as an observer, man, I don't have that gut-wrenching punch, right? It's like, man, I enjoyed it. Even if we had a bad weekend, like, I don't leave depressed. But as the driver, I was like, man, I'm thoroughly disappointed right now.
Yeah.
That is so rough.
Yeah.
All right, so WKA 2000 obviously doesn't go, as you mentioned, it's the a good weekend that ends up, not being so good at the end. And you're kind of like, hey, I don't think I want to do this. Dad's like, good, go to college. Is that really the end of the racing for a bit, or do you end up doing any more, and do you end up doing the school thing? Like, how's it go from that hell of a weekend going forward?
More or less, yes. It ended racing for me.
Wow.
There was a few one-offs that I did when I was 14 years old. Oh, man, really making me realize how many times we cheated the system. When I was 14 years old, I was
14?
Actually 14.
Oh, wow.
I went to my dad was in Elkhart Lake for a race at Road America. And one of the nights they got done early, and a couple of the guys wanted to go to the local sprint car track to watch a sprint car race. And we got there, and there was a ride there for $400. And my dad gave me a look, and he was like,
Sprint car.
Yeah. He's like, you're 16. I'm like, okay.
Oh, man.
And so he signed me up for a sprint car. It was the wingless sprint car. But nonetheless, signed me up for it, and I entered that. And so I did that race. I think I did one kart race, I think maybe when I was like, 15, something like that. But was entirely done with karting until 2013.
So you had mentioned before that at 16 is when you get in a car.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even ask you at the time. Did you already have your license? Allegedly. Yes.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Well, I was actually 14, so no, I didn't have my license.
Wait. When you got in the so the
Lexus Steel?
the Lexus.
Oh, the Lexus Steel. Yes, I did have
you
my
were
driver's
actually
license.
16, and you actually had it was all official.
I actually
you
had
even
my
got one of those
license.
little pieces of plastic with your picture
Oh
on it.
yeah,
right? Yeah,
no, it was real. Yeah, and I was honest with the DMV.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. They didn't even look into it, did
No,
they?
they didn't. But I was good at it at that point, man. I had it figured out. I was ironed up.
Which passport do you want?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're actually 16. Well, I mean, because I can't keep track of the dates, especially with all the lies. How old are you? What year is it when you're 16, roughly?
2015. I'm sorry, 2005. 2005.
Carry the one.
Yeah.
So
See, I've gotten so good at it. I
Fooling himself.
I know where I'm coming or going.
So 2005 is when you get the gig in the. 2005 is when you get the I say the gig. You get the opportunity, whether anybody liked it or not, and the commercial. So that means you did the sprint car, and right around 2003 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So from the time this weekend happens in 2000, you get a couple other little one-off things between then and 2005 when you get in the car. And we both know now that, or we all know that you translate that into a job 5 years later, about 2010. Are you just doing school and extracurricular activities or anything like that? And
Yep.
That's it?
Yep. Honestly, right around that time, I even lost interest in motorsport altogether. I used to watch all the IndyCar races, all the NASCAR races, and I was so devastated, especially after Greg Moore's death. I kind of checked out, kind of saw things for what they were, the other side, if you will. I wasn't just some kid at the track getting to play with his dad, but it was like, oh, all right, this is real, right? And there are consequences. And
you had mentioned before, your dad was done racing heavily or raced heavily up until about 2005. Is it kind of the culmination of all these things starting to come together a little bit?
Well, there was definitely... So he was very successful in a lot of aspects of his racing career. I mean, he was extremely successful from my perspective, but as a competitor, right, if he didn't win, like any of us. But there was, especially as things started to slow down for him, not on the racetrack, but he got into some situations where he was with teams that I know he wasn't satisfied with. And, when you spend all your hard-earned time putting together these projects and trying to you'll sell your life to be a race car driver, which is a lot of what he did. And then when they don't turn out, right, just cars breaking down, tie rods breaking after you've sacrificed all these years to put things together. Like, I really got to see it. And I started paying attention more to, race car driver, everybody, it looks glamorous, but the real race car drivers out there, right, they spend 80%, more than that, 98% of their time talking to people.
Yeah,
making phone calls on the internet,
trying
which
to keep
wasn't
it
a thing
going.
as a kid. Yeah, absolutely.
Selling themselves, try to get the next ride, or
absolutely, and
sponsor.
that's trying to convince the children of today that that's how it works. Is hard to do, but like I got to see that side, and it's like, man, it's not as glorious as you may think it is, right? Especially when you're a kid and you get to go to the track 3 times a week with your dad. You start to learn the truth of it, and it looks certainly different, I guess, at a certain point.
Well, I think at the last Indy 500 that they had, the real one, not the virtual one, it was out of the 35 drivers or whatever, I think 4 of them were getting paid to be there, 4 or 5 of them. The rest of them are probably all have day jobs,
right,
one way or another, and they're trying to pay to make sure they can and help out the team, making sure they could still have the best shot, right?
They may still be getting paid, but it's sponsorship money they're getting paid. They're not getting a salary from the team or anything like that.
Right.
Right. It's very rare that happens.
Yeah,
and I don't think a lot of people understand that.
I think kind of looking at going full circle on this thing. So as you're growing up, it's the romantic side of racing, watching your dad do what he's doing, watching on TV, getting a chance to do it yourself. Positives. We're having fun. It's all good. Blah blah blah. 2000, you see the negative, you feel the negative directly, and then in the next few years that follow, these other aspects, these other things start to pop up that kind of almost reinforce the negativity a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the driving force between you for you just to kind of hit pause on that? Just 100%? I mean, all these different things going on, and to that point, at 2000, what we say 10 is when you get back in a car. So what happens between 2005 where you're kind of like, motorsports can take a hike to, hey, I'm going to get this job, get this opportunity, because in 2005 when you're 16, you get a chance to go get in a car again. So
right.
It looks like it kind of takes a bit of a twist right about that time.
Well, it sounds cool getting to drive a sprint car at 14 years old. But if I'm being completely honest, it was the scariest damn thing I've ever done in my life. Something with no brakes. Like, I mean, it's dirt, so things don't slow down.
It has to be sideways, yeah.
Has to be sideways to go fast, or to have things work better, you go faster.
Yeah.
Right? You accelerate to get it to turn. What?
Right.
And the nice thing was you had all this practice before you got out there.
Oh, yeah, I was ready. No. I didn't even know how to drive a manual at the time. So I was just like, all right, well, here it goes. But I mean, if you notice, like that's kind of been the way I've done things since the beginning. So
were you in the sprint car lifting for the shift? Was it that? Were you doing that too?
No, I was really shifting this time. Not necessarily knowing what I was doing, but I was definitely shifting this time. So, but yeah, it scared the shit out of me. So,
how did that night go though? I mean,
terrible, but amazing. Terrible but amazing.
Right.
I feel like you have to be cool with the terribleness in racing because it's mostly terrible, but there's the few moments where it's super exciting.
It looks pretty good, yeah.
So I went out for practice and I pulled right in because I'm like, the brakes don't work. The guy's like, you're on dirt. I'm like, oh, I don't know what that means, but okay. He's like, yeah, you're on dirt. It's not going to slow down. So just get used to it. I'm like, oh, okay. So I kind of finished the practice, but not really. So then we go out for qualifying, and I'm still like, I don't get it, man. I'm so bad at this. I've never driven on dirt. I mean, I'd done like quads and stuff, but not like in the competition. And these guys are like full blown. They're going for it.
Yeah.
And so didn't really pick it up either. And I'm almost thinking like, Dad, I don't know if I'm gonna do this. Like, I'm gonna do it. Like, my dad was that way. Like, you face your fear, man. Always like, just go out there and complete it, and like, we'll get better at it next time. And so I end up going out for the and they're trying to teach me like a faster way to shift and all these things like in the off session, around our downtime. So like, I'm like trying to learn all this stuff. So I get back in the car for the main event, and I remember like trying to use the way. The new tactics of shifting.
Yeah.
And I was a little behind the 8 ball on that. I didn't get it. So the cars are leaving the paddock and I'm like, like trying to get the damn thing in gear. And I really never got it until they were already on their pace lap. And so I pull out of the pit lane, no warm up, no nothing, because they've already kind of warmed their cars up a little bit, done a pace lap. And so I pull on track and they're about to lap me at the green flag. So it literally became a situation where I wasn't trying to catch anyone. I was trying not to get caught.
Yeah.
Like, I look in my rearview mirror
man.
and I see this whole, I'm like,
You're leading.
dude.
Yeah.
I never thought about it. Yeah. I shit my pants, man. I was so petrified.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to get past. Like, that was the thing. Like, don't get past. Don't lose. Like, you're already losing, but at this point, like, don't get past.
Don't make it worse. Yeah.
So I ended up going purple, which I don't think it was called purple at the time. I ran the fastest race lap out of pure fear. Like, not doing, I don't even know if I was doing it right at this point, but I'm like, just don't get past. Like, just go as fast as you possibly can to, like, nothing miraculous, right? They were just a little bit less, on my bumper than they were a lap previously or at the beginning of the race. But anyway, ended up running the fastest race lap. But I'm so glad I didn't catch anybody. I don't know what I would have done if I did. I would have just sat there. I wasn't going to pass or anything.
Right.
On those things. Horrifying. Yeah.
For almost 15 or so years later, someone's like, "Hey, you wanna do a sprint car?" You're like, "No, I had a bad experience."
Nice.
Yeah,
That's
no.
just like I'll tell
Sprint
you
car, it's like shaking a little bit.
Man, I've actually had and kudos to everybody else. I'm like you, where I can't. Well, I'm not like you because you could just jump in and make it happen. Man, I need hand holding when I'm doing something new. I've had a few offers to go and do different car stuff. In dirt, like sprint cars, midget, a couple different things. And man, I just have this, especially the older I get, I can't afford to replace anything. I feel like I can't afford to replace anything. So I just have this massive fear of I'm going to F it up and it's going to cost me a lot of money. Never mind anything else. And so I'm damn sure not going to go do a race. And I just, man, the younger me probably would have said, I know it did. I actually did say yes to some other things, car stuff, or pavement, not dirt. But yeah, to go out and do something like that, man, that's tough.
Man, I would be lying to you if I said there wasn't fear in everything. I mean, even like, I sound so silly, but even the sprint series the other day, there's a little bit of fear in that because you don't want to go out and lay an egg, right? That's just your ego, right?
Well, but you're not afraid of what you're driving.
True. But in any aspect, whether it's a sprint car, go-kart, race car, whatever, I got taught a lesson when I was really young, and I swear it's like it's the one thing that keeps me going every day. But there was an Australian driver, his name's Carl McGinn, and he told me the story once. He was like, the natives of Australia, they have this saying called face the roar. And the way the lions hunt in Australia is that the male lions make as much noise as possible. And what they're doing is they're baiting their prey to run the opposite way. And the female lions are hiding on that end of the grass or the prairie. So when the animals run away or whatnot, they run right into where the females are hunting.
Yeah.
And so the natives there know to face the roar, and whatever you're afraid of most, like, you just run right at it and you do it. Man, that saying, like, that has gotten me into a lot of trouble, but also gotten me a lot of opportunities, right? So I'm not afraid to just, like, let's just see what happens. Because the truth is, man, you're probably going to suck at it. But you're only going to suck at it once, right?
Yeah.
At that bad. You're just going to get better each time.
Less,
you're going to suck less at each time you do it.
You're going to get better and better. Good point.
And it's so funny, too, like, you know, now with things with HRT, you know, so many drivers that you just hold in such high regard, how afraid they are to lay an egg. It's shocking to me because I'm like, dude, you're the best. Like, what are you talking about? You're afraid to lay an egg. They just don't want to look stupid in front of their friends. But I'm like, who cares? Because most people, certainly not all of them, but most people are not looking to see how bad you're going to screw it up. They're really seeing, what's this guy capable of? What's he actually going to be able to do out here?
Yeah.
And I think we forget that as maybe, you know, our egos take the best of us as competitors. But
yeah, certainly if you start doing a good job, or you start getting better at something or whatever, and you have this thought process, like, that's how good I should be all the time. If we dial it back to, like, when we were first starting or whatever, and we didn't know any better, we didn't know anything, then you're obviously going to fail.
Right.
And one of the things that I say as a coach, and I know we probably all do, you'll learn more from your failures
absolutely
than you do your successes. So to be afraid of the failure in the first place kind of stunts the growth, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that doesn't happen unless you've got this, whether it be ego or confidence or overconfidence, whatever, that I can't possibly learn anything else, or you're too afraid to fail.
It's just going to hold you back, and you're going to stay at that same spot.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah,
well, the ego is going to get you there. The ego is the reason we showed up in the first place, right? The reason we all went to the racetrack, I think, in the beginning was because we were like, I could do this, right? Or maybe, you know, the first time with a helmet, we can do this. But eventually it's going to have to phase out, because eventually you're going to have to start really analyzing the things you're doing. And if your ego's that big, you're not going to recognize any of your mistakes or any of your flaws.
So kind of fast forward a little bit, you get the job to go do the thing at you're 21. You get to do the precision driving thing. You're 21. I know you've told me off camera you're about 30-ish, right?
I'm 30.
30. Yeah. The ish was me not remembering, not you telling me 30-ish. I mean, which is funny now because you've lied.
I'm 34 on paper.
But so from 21 till it sounds like mid to 25, 26 or something like that, before you started doing or even thinking about doing the team thing on the side. Are you just doing, is that the 9 to 5 basically for those 5 or so years out of your early 20s? You're doing the precision driving thing, doing the coaching deal. You spent some time in driving and whatnot, and obviously pretty good wheel at commercials at a little bit lower speed and being close to. But how do you transition from a 16-year-old doing that to precision driving at 21 and actually coaching, etc.? How does that work? Did you just get better?
A lot of bad choices, man. I tell you, a lot of bad choices. No, taking opportunities. It just kind of became one thing after the next. Again, chasing the vibe. Right. If I felt good about something, I was like, I'll try that. If I didn't feel good about it, or it made me tired, I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. But there really wasn't, and still isn't, anything today that if it includes some pedals in the steering wheel that I won't, hey, let's give this a shot. Let's see what'll happen. And so, yeah, just that is, I just did a couple different things here and there. I was working for a company that was in charge of hiring the instructors for BMW, and got an email. It was like, hey, we're having a tryout. You want to show up and do it? Yeah, okay. And sure enough, they called me back, and so that's kind of where that led. And it was just a matter of like not, and again, I'm scared shitless to do it, but show up and see what happens, man, because you'll be better tomorrow. Promise, And
then at some point, you get pretty damn comfortable doing it. You get proficient at doing it, and it gets to a point where not only are you coaching there, and it sounds like doing a pretty good job because people want to, I assume this is some side seat coaching, right? You're in the passenger seat and they're in the driver's seat at times.
Not at BMW.
Oh,
I did right seat coaching for a little bit, and I realized my life wasn't worth the amount of pay that you're getting.
Agreed.
So I added a 0 to that day rate, maybe 2 zeros, and I said, okay, if you're willing
On
to
the
pay
cent
that,
side,
yeah,
not on the dollar side.
Nice. I'm like, if
Move the decimal.
you're willing to pay that, I guess I'll do it, but I don't want to ever do that again.
So what are you doing in the? As you said, you're not. It's not like you said official. You're not testing tuning steps. So what are you doing then on that precision driving? Are you still coaching, but you're doing it from the driver's seat and telling the passenger what's going on, or how's that work?
If the opportunity arose, so there was red line time attack for a while. I think it actually might still be a thing.
Yeah, actually, our first guest, Darren Mercer, did red line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did a couple of red line time attacks as an instructor, and most of that coaching was in a classroom, which is a totally different, something I hadn't done before. But having to stand up and talk in front of people wasn't really my thing. But got pretty comfortable with it, and what was neat about that is you get to see so many different perspectives, right? We're all here for the same reason, but just because I'm a 103 flat and you're a 103 flat, man, we're doing it in completely different ways. And this is before I really started like picking apart data and just really looking at just drivers' mentalities as they enter a corner, what they look at, what they think about. It's always interesting. Like, what do you think about when you're driving? Like, I think about dinner. Like, what? But really, like, getting to see like 30, 40 people think about it completely different, and the mentalities that they have approaching the sport, just there's such a wide spectrum that I just assumed we're all the same, and I was wrong about that. And so I guess my passion for teaching, and I was a basketball coach too, I left that part out, but in those years off, I coached high school basketball. And so I learned a passion for teaching there, but that's in a team environment, which I think I apply to, HRT today, but it was less one-on-one, and then car stuff is more one-on-one.
What do you prefer?
I prefer team, but I don't believe for a second that working with a driver is anything but a team. At first, I didn't think that. I think the more time I spend with my students, like, man, it's going to take a team of us to get this job done. There are some people that definitely, I think, require almost a one-on-one type atmosphere, but as things come together, it certainly is more than just one-on-one. It's a group effort.
Nice.
Certainly.
So you're doing the precision driving deal. Is this where you? I don't think I asked you this before. Did you meet some of your eventual karting team people or drivers at the car deal? Or do you have any crossover, or is this you actually didn't catch them until you went and did that fun race, or did you have anybody that did a little bit of both?
I only have 2 drivers currently that have been crossover, and they weren't even my doing. Actually, huge support from my buddies out at BMW, the people that come in like, hey, man, I'm really looking to do this all the time, but I'm broke. What do I do? And the first answer is like, call Kyle. Gotcha. Which I don't know if you're broke while you call me, but but call Kyle. He's in karting. And karting, man, for the bang for your buck, man, that's the best thing
I think it's
you can do.
Broke with quotations, because if you're broke for BMW, you still probably got a little left in the tank.
Dude, I laugh about that all the time. There's so many people into karting and racing. They're like, oh man, I'm just broke. I'm like, you're here. You're not that broke, buddy.
Can't be that bad.
Can't be that bad.
Imagine how less broke you'd be if you weren't doing it.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
All the money we're spending
Right.
here this weekend.
No, have you seen the meme, like the guy holding a stack of cash? Like, this could be us, but I'm a kart racer.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Or insert here, whatever.
Yeah.
So you're, again, kind of moving on here to how the HRT thing started. We talked about at the very beginning, actually. You kind of said it started as a joke or whatever. How did you go? You took, like you said, 14 years off. You basically don't kart again, for the most part, from 2000 until you decide that, piss on it, I'm going to go out for an F100 race or whatever. Why? What was the spark that I'm going to go back into something that you hadn't really been involved in?
Well, there's 2 things that really kind of led to that. So, first of all, F100 was, I wouldn't say my idea by any means, but I got bored one day and just trying to think about logistically and financially, like how a series would operate and how it would come together, and really eliminating reasons for people not to show up. That's what it came down to, because I was like, man, like go-karting's the coolest thing ever, but there's 6 of them. In the class I want to run, there was like 6 people. I was like, that doesn't look that fun. How do we get 30 to 40 like I had when I was a kid?
Yeah, because when you get DQ'd, you want some more guys to pass.
Absolutely. Exactly.
Nice.
Exactly. And really, like, for me, winning is great for sure, but racing is what I enjoy.
Yeah.
You don't think about that in the moments, I think, but really, like, at the end of the weekend, the one that was the most fun, maybe not during, but the one that was the most fun was the one you got to battle for 16 or 25 laps. Like, those are the ones that we take home with us. So it's just a plastic trophy at the end of the day, right? So the one you get to battle is the one that stuck with me the longest. And so I was like, man, I think everyone, whether you're battling for the lead or you're in 10th or you're in last, you should get to race. This is karting. Like, if you can't do it here, you're definitely not going to do it when you go to the next level because there's just less people.
Yeah.
So I really sat down. My old man did it, and I wish I could remember the name of the series, but he did a race in Canada, and it was like these old NASCAR style like paint jobs on these little like tin box snowmobile engine race cars. They went like 125 miles an hour, but it was dope, dude. There was like 50 of these things that entered the race, and like everyone's just
Yeah.
And so I remembered all the rules that they had. And certainly this doesn't work in every aspect of racing, but some of the rules were like the top 5 guys post their information. What? Like, that doesn't sound interesting to me now, but as a guy who doesn't really know what he's doing, that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe in the entry level form of motorsports, like, for sure, like, why isn't there something like that? So I literally sat down one day and wrote all my ideas out, and I gave them to my dad, and I said, hey, wouldn't this be cool if we kind of did something like this? He's like, that looks awesome, but I don't want to do that. He's like, but let's check with some of the guys. Like, my dad at the time was literally had a kart shop out of his garage. And
Is this early days MDG for
this
him?
is this is before MDG or anything. This is my dad. Like, he's retiring out of car racing.
Okay.
But he plays a lot, and he was racing go-karts, I think, from like right when I got out of it, like 2000 time.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
He started a little bit before that, but he was just kind of just getting his feet wet. But he really started racing karts like early 2000s. And so he had all these, I swear, he had 40 go-karts in his garage. My mom's like, yo, me or the shop, and that's why the shop happened. Or me or go get a shop, and that's why the shop happened. But all these guys would come into the shop, and my dad, I remember him asking them, like, hey, like, if we did this, like showing them kind of what we wrote down, he's like, would that be cool? And they're like, oh, that would be sick. Like, I would love to do something like that. So it really started off, there was 5 of us, and one of those 5 was Sebastian Bacon. And we sat down and we went to a pizza shop and just kind of sat there and bullshitted for a few minutes or an hour or two. And it got to the point where everyone's like, this sounds like a great idea, but I don't really want to do this. And Sebastian's like, I'll do it. Perfect. You do it. Because I don't want to do it. I want to race, right? I don't want to sit there or it sounds cool, but like, let me race first and I'll organize it. And at this point, I still wasn't driving or anything. So
when is that roughly? Is that 20? What, this could be like 12?
That was like 20. That was 2013. 2013, because 2013 is when I got back into karting, and so Sebastian and I. This is what got me back in the seat. He came up to me and he was like, "Hey, so we didn't really know each other very well at the time. Like, he was just buying karts from my dad. We didn't know each other at all. Actually, we just were familiar with each other. So he comes up to me. I'm at my parents' house, and Sebastian approaches me. He's like, "Hey, your dad just told me that you played basketball." I was like, oh, yeah. He's like, oh, well, are you any good? I was like, no, not really. But I love it. Like, I love it. He's like, oh. Yeah, and he told me that you used to race karts, too. And I was like, oh, no, not really. Like, I don't know about you guys. Like, I, for whatever reason, man, am not comfortable telling the real world about my racing. Like, I don't know what it is about it. Like, I can post Instagram photos, I guess. But, like, talking to my friends at school, like, they had no idea. It wasn't until like 5 or 6 years into it that they even figured out that my dad was a race car driver. They're like, dude, why didn't you invite us? Like, that's so cool. I was just, I don't know, embarrassed isn't the right word.
We were talking about that with Ryan a little bit.
Ryan said he was
myself as well.
He would get made fun of for that kind of stuff, actually. Yeah. So
that's what I felt.
Well, like, it's got 4 wheels, man. Like, you should race dirt bikes. And I'm like, okay, but it's not the same. Like, not the same at all.
I know whenever I brought it up, everyone just downplayed it and said, oh, it's way easier than you're talking about.
To me, that's crazy too. With you guys having the Long Beach Grand Prix here, just it had been right in, and again, since the mid '90s, Auto Club Speedway, from Oregon, we had GI Joes at I call it GI Joes because that's what it was. That was a sponsor of the Father's Day race for Champ Car, but and we had, I guess, roundy rounds at Portland Speedway, but I always felt like I was going to get made fun of, and I did when I wore my Jeff Gordon Rainbow Warriors jacket once.
one time.
Never again.
I think why everyone thinks it's so easy, quote, everyone thinks it's so easy, but the spectator, the person outside of racing that just happens to go find an IndyCar race or a NASCAR race to watch, they just see the car, they don't see the driver, or they don't imagine the driver doing that work, And I think that's what's so cool for us. We're like, we see the car sideways going through a corner or a deep pass. We're like, oh man, that guy pulled that off. And then it was like, oh, that looked really cool for the car to do that. So no one has that extra thought of thinking that there's a person actually doing that. And I think that's where a lot of the respect stops. Also, everyone just knows NASCAR, like, oh, you're just turning left all day. So there's that general one, but.
Which, have you ever driven on an oval at 175 miles an hour?
Yeah.
It's horrifying.
Yeah.
Those boys are the real deal, man. The people who talk smack on those guys, like.
Yeah.
To talk smack on anybody that you haven't done anything,
Yeah.
It's just like all of us who are, armchair quarterbacks.
Right.
Right.
Keep your eyes on the freaking ball. Fundamentals. They're an athlete playing NFL or whatever. They're getting it done, and I'm over here going, "Why didn't you catch the ball?"
There's the.
What are you thinking?
Come on.
There's the.
I've got this bird's eye view. You couldn't see that.
And I'm a Panther fan, so I got to do that a lot.
There's the.
It's not good.
You've had a busy couple years.
Oh jeez. There's a meme of like this fat guy just really out of shape laying across his couch like a bowl of Cheetos. And it's like professional golfer misses 2-foot putt, and he's just like, oh, effing idiot. And just like takes another Cheeto.
So easy.
Yeah.
Right.
And you don't have to do it.
Football is different in the sense that, like, no one really plays. I mean, this very small percentage of people actually play football. Everybody drives. So how hard could it be?
I guess that's
a good point.
How hard could it be?
Well,
Yeah.
and we get that a lot, actually, in the Arrive and Drive game, and I even saw it a ton at when I used to manage indoor track or run indoor track stuff. It's like you got people, everybody, to your point, they drove there. That's how they got to the track. So then when they go out there and they completely stink, you're like, not so bloody easy, is it? You know, it's just a completely different game. So, yeah, it's interesting that that kind of mentality that some people have, to your point, Derek, about some people thinking it being too easy or easy or what have you in the first place. When we look forward to you getting back into the into karting, right, and doing these couple of races, like you said, the F100 race, having the conversation with these guys. So F100 happens, you get out there, you start driving, you do the LAKC thing, which goes swimmingly. How do you go from, all right, I'm going to get back into this? Obviously, you do the coaching and stuff. But why start a team? Like, why go from just the coaching gig to I'm going to start a team and whatnot, especially in a situation where you aren't racing? This isn't a scenario where you are doing things to kind of pay for your stuff and make things happen, where you're going, where owner is going out here racing. No, he's a wrench. He's coaching. He's running the show. He's doing these things. So what was the catalyst? What made you kind of turn that page and really make HRT happen in the first place?
Well, when I wasn't racing, I missed it so much, right? Listening to Beechner's podcast, right? He talked about how, like, he got to the point where he's like, okay, I want to go get a real job. I did that. I went and, no, I didn't. I wasn't.
A hell of a real job there,
yeah, it was
buddy.
a hell of a real job,
Yeah.
right? I didn't really, but it was a real job in the sense that I made a salary, right? I got to own all the things I thought I wanted. It's sad, but I owned way more than what I ever thought I was capable of in the first place. So we got to live at the beach, right? Pretty cool. So I got to a point where I had everything I had ever set out for. And a girl that I was dating back 8 years or 9 years ago now, she on our first date, she asked me, she said, hey, if you could do anything tomorrow, what would it be? And my answer was like, I'd go racing. Like, not even a hesitation, like, I'd go racing. She's like, what kind of racing? I was like, it doesn't matter. Something with lots of people, because I want to thrash, elbows up.
Yeah.
But, I just want to thrash. She goes, well, is there anything you could do, like, today, if you wanted to? I said, yeah, actually, I could. I said, my dad has a bunch of go-karts in his garage. Like, I bet I could do that if I wanted to. And she told me, great heart, man. She tells me, she's like, well, if we're ever going to be happy, don't you think you should be happy and do what you love? I was like, what? Who are you? But yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, right about that, it was literally like the same week, right? Just chase the vibe, right? Just chase where you get the vibes from. That same week, Sebastian has this conversation with me about basketball and racing. And he goes, oh, so you play basketball? Yeah. You race? No. And he goes, oh, well, your dad just told me that you did.
He just can't help himself. He has to lie.
I have to lie. I can't help it. No, I was embarrassed, man. I didn't want to talk about it. So I didn't want to get into the whole reason why I quit, honestly. So
right, that's what it is.
It was a heartbreak. Yep. It was a heartbreak you just don't want to talk about.
Well,
so.
and what's crazy, it happened so long before that, and you're kind of carrying it with you a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
That's
and
tough.
It wasn't until not that long ago, man, that I carried it with me. And I think you saw that in my driving a little bit, man. I was tenacious and definitely calmed down once I got past that. But so Sebastian, in that conversation, he goes, oh, he's like, all right, okay, like, you don't race, okay. He's like, well, we should go play basketball sometimes because at least you can beat me at that.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Last time you ever take out Sebastian?
Yeah.
So I happen to know that guy was like studying or whatever you call it. He was going to school to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
Oh,
he is a lawyer now. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Smart cookie.
Smart
Yeah.
cookie. He knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
I'm going to get you to help me do what I want.
He poked the bear, certainly. That night, I walked out to my dad's garage because I was inside hanging out with my mom. Actually, a friend of mine was there too, and he like gave me like the slow head turn, like, "Hey, are you gonna take that shit?" Yeah. Hell no, I'm not. So I literally went out that night. My dad had these 40 go-karts, and I'm like, "Hey, you got one for me?" And he kind of looked at me like, "Wait, are you serious?" And I was like, "Yeah, you got one? I'll put it together. Like, I'll race this thing." He's like, "I don't have time to build this thing." I'm like, no. Like, I got it. Let me know where you want me. Like, I'll do this. Mm-hmm. And he goes, "Yeah, you can take that go-kart over there." It was like this old, like, 2008, like, Burrell. It was twisted, I'm sure, because once I put it together, man, that thing didn't go straight for anything. But put it together that night. Actually, my brother and my brother's girlfriend, who knows nothing about anything, about karting, nothing. Like, I'm like, "Hey, will you help me put the seat in?" And I didn't know what I was doing, to be honest. Like, I had kind of seen it, but like, so literally,
you were asking your brother or her?
I'm asking her at this point. Like, because he was working on different stuff. Like, I'm like, "Hey, will you try to like hold this for me, and I'll just like drill this thing in." And I remember,
you
so
start asking her how to do it. I'm just thinking about James going, "Yeah, good luck, brother."
Yeah, right.
Well, my brother was, I forget what he was doing, but he was like putting the pedals or something together for me. And like, we had to build, it was like 11 o'clock at night, and we were going to the track tomorrow. So it was like, we're going to work on this thing all night. We're going to get this thing ready.
Kyle Hayner, man of planning.
Man of planning. Yeah. Well, chasing that vibe, man, the vibe was strong. You challenged my ego, man. I'm going for it. So, so we build this thing overnight. And I show up to the track the next day, and I'm going to show the Sebastian character what's up, right? And so
I'll cook your bacon.
I'll cook
your Oh, that's pretty good.
You like that, Derek?
Yeah.
That was good. You didn't have to think about that.
He might take you to court now. But
Oh, nice.
He's probably an active listener. Anyway, so we go to the track the next day, and dude, the fire came back. Being on track with him and a couple other guys who were running actually the Kart Be Clean series.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
About that one.
They're like, "Dude, like, you're pretty fast at this," which the cart, man, I'm telling you, like, if I can go fast in this thing, we're hopping through the corners and hopping through rights, not turning through lefts. And they're like, "Man, if you can drive this thing, like, you should put something together and run the Kart Be Clean series." And so that's what I did. I signed up to do a race at the Kart Be Clean series. And this is before, like, again, no planning. Like, it was just like, this is what I want to do. Like, I'll put myself in that position and I will figure a way out to figure out how to do it. My dad wasn't going to be home, and I just wanted some guidance, someone to be there, but whatever. So I took his truck out for the weekend, threw a cart in the back seat, get out there, and man, I was so slow. But I didn't understand, right? Like, I understood the basics of it.
Like, the wheelbase is all wrong. The thing's super long like this.
Yeah, no, I didn't get it.
Way more horsepower than I'm used to.
Right. Yeah, no, and
it's
it was
not a cadet, Derek. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I got it.
It wasn't a cadet.
You sure?
Let him continue.
Oh.
Jesus.
We'll fill him in later. Dave.
Yeah.
So I just I there was all these variables that I wasn't even considering. I was like, even back when I was a kid, like, it was all about the driver. Like, just follow the basics, right? Like, we'll get there in the end. And that's honestly how I was looking at it. So I think it was like a Friday, Saturday event or whatever. And Friday during the day, man, I was terrible. I was so bad. And Terry Nash approaches me and he's like, "Hey, what's up with your engine?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "It's just not very fast." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't notice." He's like, "Oh, it's making all these weird noises." And
This is KPV?
KPV.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, I didn't even notice." He's like, "I'm going to put one of my engines on there for tomorrow." I was like, "Okay, cool. All right."
Yeah.
So I show up at 7 a.m., whatever, the next morning. It's at Grand J Motor Circuit. And he's there in the morning ready to go for me. And we gut mine. He puts his on. And very similar to my first race ever, I felt like after qualifying, I start looking at the sheet and I start at the bottom. Man, I think we qualified third or something. I was like, "Oh no, like, oh no,
Here we go
again." Yeah, like I literally didn't know it. Like I'd been on the track with kids for sure, but like now I'm on the track with Paul Bonilla and Tyler Brooks and Kyle Kunze, right?
So the first thing you did is you check the rear bumper and you throw a stick behind the
Yeah,
rear tires.
exactly.
The very first thing.
What's funny is I still do that. Postpartum, man, like
Come
freaking
on.
out.
I love it.
But so I went out there and didn't do it. I think we finished fifth. Like didn't do as well as I thought I would, or thought I could. But it certainly was igniting a fire that had been resting for 14 years, and saved my pennies. And then I did an F100 race, and the F100 race I did very well at. And a couple people were like, "Hey, would you show me how to do that?" I'm like, "Seriously? Like, I'm literally just here for fun, but okay, sure." And in that time is when I really started to like get hands-on with it, man. I started gutting my cart, putting it back together, gutting it, putting it back together, just like learning how it went back and forth. And this is like no cart setup, no nothing. Like just wing it. Just not wing it, but you know.
You're learning the actual mechanics of what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so just started gutting it, putting it back together. And right about that time, my dad was starting his shop. So I now had an excuse to do it. I wasn't just doing it for fun. I wasn't just taking it apart and putting it back together. Now it was like, okay, I'm going to do this for other people.
And you're still doing all the precision driving at the same time, right? Yeah. This is where that's the money. This is the fun.
Correct. Absolutely. I think my first, Ethan Lampy, who is now a driver for my dad. Ethan Lampy was kind of my first, like, yeah, I'll show you what's up. I'm like, I'll help you with this and this. And basically it was just working on the fundamentals. That's all it really was, is like, my dad always told me that if you just do these 5 things, like the worst day you're going to have, you'll still be top 10. Like just do these 5 things, like no matter what, even if you're getting past, like go back to these 5 things. And
Ethan's like, yeah, but there's 6 through 15 after that.
right.
Actually, I remember Ethan being at the sharp end at the F100 Carters, I believe. Like I think I remember seeing him in the results. Be doing pretty well at the
I know
F100s
at Tri-C,
and
I've
stuff,
seen him
right?
up front.
Yeah.
Oh, he's killing it now,
Yeah.
man. He finished second at Pro Kart last weekend.
Oh, wow. Good on him.
He got a couple poles last year in junior.
Oh, I'm thinking of it's Pops. I think I'm thinking of
Oh, yeah, probably Brian Lampy.
Brian.
Yep.
That's what I'm thinking of.
No,
Brian.
Ethan, man,
Ethan's
I tell you what, that kid is the real deal. Just wait till he gets to senior, where it seems to matter the most, right? To the viewers, but
Right.
that kid's the real deal for sure. And he doesn't do anything other than just drive. Like there's no thought really behind it. He's just like going as fast as possible. Okay,
Those naturals, man.
dude, natural talent.
Crazy.
His first day, which I tell this because I hope he's listening, but his first day at the racetrack, like it's like, okay, the throttle is on the right, the brake is on the left. And his parents like wanted to give him all this other information. I said, just like, hold on one second. Let's see what happens. Let's just see what happens. So we let him out at Apex, right? He takes off down the back straightaway. Whee, full throttle. Doesn't hit the brakes for the last corner because I didn't really need to slow down. Misses the turn in because the tires are cold, right? Slides up to the edge of the wall. Fixes it. Comes back. Full throttle down the second straightaway, the main straight.
Oh, my God.
And his parents are like closing their eyes and stuff. And I said, man, and that's honestly where I learned like fearlessness. Like the one thing drivers have in common is they're not afraid, right? At least on the racetrack. So like, yeah, just keep him fearless, man. See what he does. And now, I mean, he's still, I think, shows that fearlessness in his own driving. So
now you got the HRT gig. Now you're a team. After getting these guys that want to do coaching with you and work with you and whatnot, and it's like you said, you had 20 some odd drivers that you're talking about. At any one time could be underneath the tent that you're working with, and you start the team up. Is there a thought process, or maybe like we kind of mentioned earlier, carrot on for the team? Is there a direction you're trying to go? and achieve something, i.e., in the Ryan episode, he wanted to go show that they could do it, at Pro Tour or Supernats or whatever. Do you have the same kind of aspirations for your deal? And does any of that, as a separate deal, does any of that trickle down to you as a driver as well?
Absolutely. I think it's different maybe than what you're expecting, or maybe different than I think what every other team. So I learned to work on a kart pretty quickly. I can typically pick up things pretty fast. So I just kind of took them apart a couple times here and there and started working at my dad's, not full time, but enough to like fill in all my blanks, right? And then I actually worked at Giebler's shop for a little bit. I worked for a couple different teams, mostly as a coach. Giebler wanted me more as like a mechanic, which I knew, like chasing the vibe, that instantly, like, I don't want to do that. Like a tuner is cool because it's a relationship between me and a driver, but I wasn't looking to just be told what to do. I wanted to like experiment with things and try different things, and like the old school way of like, well, let's just try this, see if it works, right? So working for all these different teams and also being a fan of the sport, right? Just constantly observing the sport from the sideline, going to Supernats, for example. I remember the first year I went to Supernats as a fan, because I was coming from a position that missed it so much, I was so disappointed with the behavior. Well, I sound like my dad right now, but no, I was so disappointed with the behavior. It's just like everyone was so angry. Are they really enjoying this? And here I was, gone for full cycle almost on a career that I was like, man, I'm not happy doing this. Like the one thing that makes me happy is what these guys get to do every day, and they're not happy.
Yeah.
So the working for the different teams, I noticed that was consistent. Not to say that they were all this way, certainly not. But there was a lot of miscommunication. There was a lot of anger kind of behind the scenes. And I told myself, I said, if you are going to do this, your goal is just like spread love, man. Like spread the love for the sport, because like at the end of the day, we're all just driving in circles. If no one else is here, we're on a track by ourselves, dressed as a Power Ranger, driving in circles, right? So like if we don't have each other, right, even if it's an opposing team, like if we don't have them, it's just a bunch of guys that all talk shit to each other that are just going around driving in circles. So like, how can we build the sport? How can we, maybe not from a beginner's aspect. I don't think I'm knowledgeable enough maybe to do that, but I do understand the sport enough. I have enough experience in coaching that like, I feel like I can spread love to the drivers that truly have a passion for this. And I guess that's my goal. Like I have an image in my mind, what I want it to look like. That's just artificial, right? What it looks like is just artificial. So maybe we can create some sort of, and man, the drivers that we have now, it's such a interesting group. I think a lot of teams have a very consistent vibe, and our vibe is very all over the place. And I think it's just that it's drivers that are looking for that love, right? Looking for like to share the passion with it, with the sport that they think about nonstop.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I know with Derek and I, that the CSK racing thing is a lot of fun. I think it's one of those things where like we're underneath the tent, and everybody that we have, they've kind of most of them have graduated up from the arrive and drive stuff, so they're already kind of ingrained in how Derek and I and Cal Speed is done with the sport karting stuff. But it is absolutely fun sportsmanship, and we all want to win, we all want to get better, but there's not this. And certainly for anybody who's been on the team for any kind of period of time, there's not a killer instinct scenario where we're not going to help each other out. We've got, on any given season, we've had the direct championship contenders being under our tent, and we're still sharing information. We're still sharing laughs. We're still helping each other out. There's not a animosity, and then the next season we'll still have those same people underneath the tent to go for the championship.
You definitely set the tone with any team owner. You definitely set the tone, and then you attract people like you that like that tone. We're fortunate enough that we're able to kind of, like you said, already ingrain that because of the guys coming from the arrive and drive stuff. But it's if you enjoy hanging, like we just talked about with Ryan the other day, if we enjoy being around those kind of people, or if that person enjoys being under the tent with you and Callie and everyone, they're going to continue to do that because they feel comfortable there.
Yeah, and I
Right.
guess the one big challenge to that, though, right, is that if it's a business, there is a monetary aspect.
Right.
So having the chemistry or the atmosphere underneath the tent certainly one thing, but how do you balance that? I know, actually, and as Derek just pointed out, Callie, your fairly new wife. You guys have been together for a bit, but
My much, much better half.
and a workhorse underneath the tent
Absolutely.
for sure. On the team side of things, I know that it's very much everybody underneath that tent. It just seems that they work really well together. They work with each other for the betterment of everybody underneath the tent. But I've even seen, like, well, I haven't seen you behind the wheel a whole hell of a lot. Callie, I've seen get behind the wheel and do some different things. But I do know that every single person underneath the tent has driven before. Kyle Babita, who's underneath the tent, has done a good amount of driving. He used to actually work for us for a little period of time. He's a bit of a wheelman as well. Where I'm going with the whole thing is that you've got this environment underneath there. How do you grow that into or again, going back to maybe the goal, how do you transform that or make that blossom into a financial situation where maybe Kyle Hayner goes out and races a little bit more as well?
I'm bad at it. I'm bad at it. The goal has always been, and it's like, if you build it, they will come, right? So I think I'm learning every day. Absolutely, we all are. But it's and we're very strict with our vibe, very strict. The approach obviously has to be different from driver to driver, but we're very strict in our vibe and how we condone ourselves behavior-wise. There's a reason our mechanics are ex-drivers, right? They understand it a little bit deeper, I think, than maybe just the mechanic. Not that there aren't some great mechanics that can't drive. There certainly are, but there's just a different atmosphere, or you can create a different atmosphere with that mentality. Babita. Babs.
Yeah.
Babs is a killer, man. That guy is a workhorse. Callie, I think, does a great job as far as leadership goes. Like, she works harder than any of you boys out there. So she sets the vibe, certainly. And then you've got Marco, who's our chief mechanic, and then Babs, who will be someday if he wants to go down that route. Their work ethic, I think, definitely sends a message of, like, we're not messing around, right? We're here for a purpose. As far as, like, being able to pay for my own racing, that's never been the goal. But I have a lot of things in the works currently. Not so much from an individual standpoint, but I think if I continue this growth, I think in all these different aspects, that the individual part will come. I mean, shit, man, I'm spoiled. I've been able to race my whole life, and what's cool is it doesn't matter to me. Like, I don't have to spend $6,000 and go race a Supernats to feel fulfilled, right? I think Super Series last weekend, man, I've left every bit as happy. Maybe if I grabbed a win, okay, maybe I would have felt a little happier. But you know what I'm going to work on between now and the next time? A whole bunch of stuff, because I figured that sucker out. I just unfortunately only had 8 laps by the time I figured it out. So, and to me, like, that process, like the process of learning, like, that's really the fun part for me. I have had no success in my life ever that didn't have the precursor of disappointment, right? So knowing that, right, like, anytime it feels a little rough, like, I feel like, all right, man, guess what's happening next? What happens next is the excitement or the celebration, because otherwise it's just all pretty vanilla if everything's exciting. So
Yeah.
Well, and I had said, maybe there's something that happens where you get you get back in the seat or whatever. But I did neglect to mention that you've actually gotten a chance to do some endurance racing and been at our Machismo race.
Yes,
and
sir.
you've routinely told me that might be one of the most fun things that you've gotten a chance to do. What is it about that? And is that and I know you've driven with other teams and whatnot that have put things together. But real quick, before I ask if there's going to be an HRT Machismo team this year, but what is it about the Machismo, this endurance racing, which is obviously different than almost what other people are doing, whether it be competition karting or otherwise? What is it about the endurance racing that you do have a good time with?
Well, I keep mentioning love, man. Like, we're all in this passion sport because we love it, right? Like, it doesn't matter, man. You could be eating, taking a shit, whatever. You're kind of thinking about karting, right? And I noticed too that there's more camaraderie between drivers who aren't head-to-head competing within 16 laps, right? It's not like, there's a lot of what I notice goes on like in competition karting, like, oh, well, if I had that brand new kart like he did, I would beat him. Well, in an endurance race, all those variables go away, right? You obviously have the variable of, like, you do need a piece of equipment that's going to last you 12 hours. But other than that, right, there's no reason to hate the brother standing next to you, right? So instantly when you pull into Machismo, man, that vibe, you can feel it. It's just like the opposite vibe you feel at other events of everyone's out for the kill, right? Now, having said that, for those of you who haven't been to a Machismo event, like, those boys are in it to win it. Like, don't you dare
don't underestimate
underestimate that attitude at all, because everyone that's there is taking it very seriously. But there's the camaraderie, right? Like, everyone's there, like, chilling, hanging out. Like, genuinely, I saw a cart flip 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah, it was.
A cart flipped, and I've never seen anybody care about his safety at Machismo, man. Everybody was genuinely concerned, like, is he all right? Like, they went up and asked him after the flip if he was okay, and and we can just drive, and we can just race. There's no drama around that. I guess there is, but the drama is not conducive to the sport in most situations. And Machismo, any drama, man, it's directly related to what's going on track. And aside from that, just the vibe or the love that happens at Machismo, endurance racing is like has a special place in my heart. I used to watch my dad do endurance racing more often than sprint racing. And the strategy portion, man, is so fun. And like Machismo, because you have like the fuel rule, and like if you both feet aren't on the ground before you jump in like all these different like little rules. 3 years ago, the first year we were really successful at it. Our second year as a team, the HRT boys signing up, Drew Zeller, Jetson, Leeser, me, Logan Calvin, who's not one of our guys, but I wish he was, and Steve Jasinski.
Oh yeah.
The first year we were in the lead but hit the wall, so we finished way down the list. But the second year, when we grabbed our first win, I did the first stint and I was sitting in second, and Christian Brooks was in the lead, and I came in maybe 15 car lengths behind him. I pit, he stays on track. Well, like 3-4 hours goes by, and now the strategies are offset, right? But 3 or 4 hours come by and the strategy comes back together. And guess who pulls out about 10 to 15 car lengths in front of us? The Brooks team, right? I think it was Troy Adams who was running that show. But they pull out 10 to 15 car lengths. And I'm like, wait a second. How cool is that? That once the strategies realigned, that we're in the same position we were before.
Yeah, 5 hours ago.
Right, exactly. And that to me, like, dude, the rush of excitement when I saw that, like, that probably sounds so nerdy, but like the rush of excitement, I'm like, oh, here we go, because now we only got 4 hours left. Like, let's see how this works. And dude, every year, no matter how much of a lead or
a gap or whatever
gap you have, whether you're first or second, like, it's gotten pretty intense for us. For our sake, for our luck, I should say, Casey Cook had some issues at the end of last year. And so we were able to pull it out. But I was actually, so when the race got rescheduled, I missed the event. And I was in the Philippines on my honeymoon. Damn you, Mike. No, just
it was actually Derek's fault.
Oh, I assumed.
Everybody knows.
I assumed. But so I'm watching the phone live timing on my phone, which I don't know if anyone does that. But man, that is intense.
In the Philippines?
In the Philippines.
No, everybody is watching the Machismo in the Philippines.
Like a race you're not at, but you're watching it live and you've got some skin in the game. Like, we had just tested the week before. Like, we were all ready to go.
Pro kart for me just a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I'm absolutely watching pro kart going, oh, that could be me.
Yeah. And you watch like the lights, like they get closer together. You're like, oh, they're getting closer. Like, I'm not even watching the times. But anyway, so I was watching, just watching for my app. And dude, it's still intense. Like, I'm halfway across the world, and I'm the opposite side of the world watching this thing. And
like, Callie, check this out.
No, I was in the doghouse for like 4 hours after that. She's like, are you seriously watching? No, I'm teasing. She's
like, and you're like, perfect, only 4 hours left.
yeah.
She's like, Kyle, give me the phone.
No, I'm the luckiest man in the world, man. She loves racing as much as I do. So she was over my shoulder like, how they doing? Like, oh, we're in second. We got this. But anyway, we were able to pull it out again. But yeah, man, the machismo race, like, it really just takes away that layer of like anger, right? There's a lot of anger in racing, right? A lot of drivers have anger, and anger's their fuel. So like, I get it. But at a certain point, like, you just want to enjoy your time, right? You just want to like hang out with your friends, compete with your friends. You know, T.I. said it best, I think. Like, dude, you leave that stuff on the track. Absolutely. But like, looking back on it now, dude, my biggest enemies, in quotes, are my best friends. Because if drivers drive their personality, the one that races you the hardest, man, is the one that you know is like a real dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, that guy,
Yeah.
he probably also has your back too. You know what I'm saying? So like, just not when you're trying to compete against them, but when you're on his side, there's a lot of camaraderie that I think can build in that. So,
well, like you'd said, you know, if it's just one team out here, you're just, you know, going around circles by yourself. You know, it's not like you got any racing. I think that's what can be a little bit tough. Is obviously you want to do well, your own team or group or whatever, you know. Like, for instance, at Tri-C and with the CSK racing team and stuff like that, with Dirk and I, we're not driving anymore. We're trying to tune or help out. But damn near the entire field, if not the entire field, is either an arriving driver or we know them or whatever, this other kind of thing, you know, friends of ours, whatever it may be. And we're rooting our guys on. And shit, half the time our guys are going against each other. And I get maybe into it too much as a team owner and as a coach, because I'm trying to get, you know, be smart, like do everything I can to try to help out, which is just, they've got the wheel, right? It's up to them. But at the end of the day, if you're going to hold that stuff, if you're going to hold on to it and be angry about it or whatever, I mean, I'll be absolutely audible if something goes wrong for our guys or whatever. But at the end of the day,
got to stand up for your boys.
Yeah. But we'll walk over to the scale line, and I'm not holding anything. I'm not angry. You know, if it happened, it happened. But I'm not going to get up on the chip about it. I mean, we teach our guys, you don't get up on the chip about it. Not in the scale line. We'll go talk about it back at the tent. Just like my dad taught me when I was a kid. Sportsmanship is not just how you win, but how you lose.
Yep.
And that's kind of what we try to ingrain with our guys. And we've got, like you had mentioned, you got to approach it different with every one of the drivers that you have, regardless of age or maturity or age and maturity.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, those things
be.
aren't mutually exclusive.
You know? And it's, at the end of the day, God damn, it's supposed to be a good time. You know, I mean, obviously we're spending money, we're doing whatever it is, but if you are not doing karting, if you're not doing any of this racing business for a good time, you should definitely be rethinking the old priorities.
Right. I mean, how lucky are we, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we play with go-karts. Here we are today talking about go-karts. I mean, you know how many people, like, go to their shit job and then have to drive 2.5 hours home and
listen to
the
this
highlight
show
of their day is, like, getting on their phone, right?
Right.
Like, that's so sad. But how lucky are we that we get to do this on a regular basis?
Yeah. No, it's absolutely one of those situations where you have to be thankful for what you get to do. If you do what you love, right? And I know that all of us do that.
Yeah.
Man, this is a hell of I love this episode. This is a lot of fun chatting with you, man, and not knowing anything about any of this background, you know, and kind of seeing where you're at. And
there's only like 3 people that know this story, by the way. So now, like, I'm a little nervous.
There'll be 3
more.
more.
Oh yeah,
there'll be 3 more
at least
if we're lucky.
Yeah.
No,
maybe 2.5.
Yeah.
The algorithm.
Maybe
is
if
right.
Alyssa listens to it, it's that half person.
Oh, that's mean. Careful.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's just lucky they don't share the track anymore.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
why I could say all this stuff.
If she ends up coming out,
Yeah,
for
but I'm
like
gonna
a
try to do super
KA
series. She'll
race.
come right after me.
Nice.
Oh, there you
Well,
go.
you didn't say the half part. So
That's true.
Did you know that Callie hit us up for you to be on the show?
Oh no, I didn't at all.
So she had reached out to, I figure now I can tell you this because you're on the show and we're about to finish out. But she messaged our Instagram saying, hey, I don't know if you have any guests planned out, but I'd really like to hear what Kyle's story is and all that, because I think that was pretty much it. I don't know if she mentioned something about she doesn't really know too much about it except for the more recent stuff. But,
she wasn't one of the 3 people that knew.
Yeah.
No, she wasn't.
Exactly.
No, I don't. I'm not. I haven't been very open about it. It's like I said, it's like an old heartbreak that I don't like to talk about.
Right.
I just like to like go put it to the side, and I use it as fuel for a long time. But that fuel is no longer lit by anger, right? So now I've got to kind of shift gears, and now I can talk about it.
Yeah.
How did you, if you don't mind asking, how did you come up with the HRT? I assumed, or I said in the beginning, Hayner Racing Team, but I mean, what is the HRT, and how'd you come about that? And the colors, and they're like, I mentioned I like the colors, and they're like that. But.
Yeah.
So a long process. I am super analytical, and it's a lot. It works a lot in my benefit, but it also, man, makes things take forever. But you nailed it on the head. Williams, man, those are my favorite.
Nice.
I was a Michael Schumacher fan for sure, but the Williams cars, man, always stood out to me. And I've always kind of looked at like everything's symbolic, right? So like black is evil, but blue and white is like angelic, So
it's a
that's
rebellion.
Absolutely. No, literally like Star Wars. Yeah. So the rebellion, no, but blue and white came from the Williams. And even our logo is very similar to one of the off logos or off-brand logos for Williams. That kind of inspired a lot of it. So HRT actually, so again, going back to symbolism, HRT actually stands for heart. We used it as Hayner Racing Team when we did our first original logo, just because we didn't know what to put underneath it. And the more I got into the whole team aspect, like the less I was a racing team, I realized. And that's just going off of the energies from the other teams. Like those guys have a very clear like energy, whereas like if I'm working with 8 drivers, for example, like each driver has a completely different message. And so this is really driver development. This is really what it is, I thought to myself. So it's like, you know what, let's try. I don't know if branding works or how well that's going to work, but let's slap driver development on there, not Hayner Racing Team, because I don't necessarily want drivers coming that think they're going to be part of like this team. Definitely we have a vibe, but it's like the message isn't the same for everyone, which is different, I think, at least from my experience with the other teams. Like, this is the way we do it, we're going to do it this way. There's certainly things we do that are specific to us, right? You have to have the right energy, you have to have the right vibe. If you're not here to do a great job for yourself, I mean, I could care less where you finish. I mean, not that I don't want you to succeed, but like you're here to succeed for you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get to reap the benefits of that. But yeah, we're developing drivers, and really we're developing people that happen to hold a steering wheel. That's really what it is. We spend 80% of our time talking about life, 20% about talking about driving. I mean, it's just driving. How hard could it be right now?
But we just think if we were going around in circles.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm only kidding. But yeah, so HRT actually stands for heart. And if you notice, like our logo sits like Iron Man heart on the suits.
Oh, cool.
Like I said, there's a lot of thought that goes into it. And then when it gets done, like no one notices. And you're like, oh, okay, I really thought that would.
Like, that's a very odd placement of the logo. Right there.
Yeah. But yeah, it's the Iron Man heart. And so HRT is, or as like Daniel always says, like, or hurt, depending. But yeah, the Iron Man heart, HRT. Just because, like, if we're going to do this, whatever this happens to be in the end, like, we're going to put our heart all the way into it. And that's the one consistent thing we must have. And if heart's not in it, well, the cart's going in the trailer. Or there's some great teams, and I mean that authentically, or genuinely, I should say. There's some great teams there. So, like, if you want to not put your heart in it, like, and that's a bad business move, I know, but I think that eventually we're only 2 years in, 3 or 4 years into this, man, that love's gonna spread, and I think eventually other teams will start to pick it up too.
Nice.
So if somebody wants to get involved in this heart team, how are they going to get a hold of you?
The best way is I'm a terrible phone person. Also probably a terrible business move. I hate cell phones. I don't know if you know this about me, but I get home and I've gotten way better at it the last few months. But I throw my phone up on the counter. And
good thing, because there was no business this last few months, so
yeah,
convenient.
Right.
This is when he starts to get better at it.
Yeah.
Well, no, maybe the last year or so I've gotten way better at it. But yeah, I used to throw my phone up on the counter in silent, and I ignore it, and I'm terrible at it. But the best way now to get a hold of us is you can go to our website, HRTDriver.com. You can send us a message there. I know things can get lost in email, like junk mail, whatnot, so you can always call us. But our phone number is on there. I'm probably not going to give it to just anyone listening to the podcast, but the phone number is on there. And man, like again, probably a terrible business move, but if you just want to talk karting, like I will nerd out with you for how long have I been here? No, I will nerd out with you all day. Like I love it. So, if we're not a right fit or whatever, like we don't work for everybody. It's a very different approach, I think, to the sport in general. And if it doesn't work, like, man, I'll point you in the right. We've done this actually recently. Callie and I have pointed drivers like, hey, man, your mentality is just different, which might be a bad business move now, but I think in the long run it's going to work. I believe that it'll work. And so I think, yeah, if we can, if our vibe works with you and you'll work with us, I think we're a great fit for the drivers that are willing to put their heart into something. Because we're going to destroy the ego. That's kind of what we start with, right? We're not here to make you fast. You're going to make yourself fast. We just have to guide you in the right spot. And so the first couple of days, man, if you've got an ego, things are going to be rough because we're going to just start poking at it and picking at it. We take every variable out of it. So you're sitting there alone on your own island by yourself as a driver. And so you're going to learn a lot from yourself in those moments.
Nice. I like that different take on things right there.
Yeah.
What's next on the docket for you and or the team?
To me, it comes down to this is still go-karting. Not that go-karting can't be a professional sport. I think, and without giving you too much information, I am working on that. I think karting should be a professional sport. I don't see why you can get 90,000 people out to Supercross in Anaheim twice a year, but you can't get half of that to come out to a karting event. I mean, to me,
Hell, we'll take 10%.
Right, exactly.
And it's at the same place all year.
Right. There is not, and maybe I'm alone in this, but there is not another form of motorsport that I wouldn't rather watch than a kart race. I mean, super nats, man. The last few years in X30 Senior, like, has there been a higher level of competition when the guy in 20th, you're thinking, that guy could pull this out? And so I don't think, at least I don't get as entertained watching other motorsports. So that potential of karting being a professional sport, a real professional sport, and with spectators and things like that, that is definitely on my mind a lot. Hopefully I don't step on any toes trying to piece those things together. But as far as a racing team, I think, or a driver development service, I think that we'll just continue to grow and try to spread the love. And like, man, I want karting to grow. It has been the love of my life, other than my better half now, but until I met her, it was the only love of my life. And so anything that we can do to build the sport from the ground up, kind of, because we kind of, we're not going to recreate the wheel here, but we are going to build off, I think, of a great foundation that clubs like SCUSA, LAKC have done for us. Tri-C now, I don't know, the vibes there, man, have been great.
Yeah,
and they're making a lot of drivers view this a little different, and I think quarantine did that. A lot of drivers sitting at home for 3 months, man, they go to a Tri-C event now. It's like, oh, everyone's just here for fun, but the competition is exactly the same.
Well, the appreciation is I think a lot higher.
Yeah,
lately.
They've had what was it? Was it a pack race? They had the enduro, right?
Yeah,
and a pack race, I think.
I think so.
Yeah, and then their first race coming up first week in August. And obviously, the end of July, we'll have an LAKC race. And to your point, I'm really looking forward to seeing. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody again for one, but for two, just that vibe and everybody coming back. I mean, like what it was when we were testing Willow. I wasn't at Pro Kart, and
the vibe was great there, man.
Was it?
Yes.
And then you have Andy's
like
deal that just happened,
nice,
in Arizona, and it kind of feels like, you don't know what you have until it's gone situation, and we all kind of lost it for 3 months, and we're all getting it back, and let's ride this train. You know what I mean?
It could have been the best thing for the sport. I mean, to have a reset button, and everyone's like, we can view this a little differently. Hopefully, more people do that than less.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. It's not like it's completely broken, right? We all still are getting out there and playing around and whatnot. But maybe it's a good time to reflect. But
a bad weekend at the racetrack, man. It's
still a good weekend.
Still a good weekend.
Come on. And speaking of good weekends, you're actually going to get a chance to play around this weekend, and this airs after the fact, so I guess I can probably say that it's you and the lovely lady are going to be
she won't know
driving at the same time, and she doesn't know yet.
Nope.
Gonna try some left onlys, some oval.
onlys. Well, all the smack talk that we give to the left only guys. No, dude, totally different skill within itself.
Oval race this weekend at Cal Speed. You just got done doing it was your first super, right? Last weekend, right?
I think that was only third time I've driven one of those karts.
Yeah, because I just did a couple little rentals, but
and half the time I was bashing too hard to even notice what I was doing.
This is true. I was out there with you. I think I remember.
You replaced the parts, you know.
So the oval this weekend, get a chance to play a little bit, and to your point, it's all about a good time and plan around. And speaking of a good time, that's exactly what this was, man.
Sure.
Man,
thank you guys.
I think I say it every single time we get down with these things. It's so much damn fun, and actually to get a chance to do it with someone who's been listening to these shows and giving the feedback you have, man. Thanks so much for coming out and playing around with us.
Having me, guys.
Of course.
Yeah. All right, buddy.
So fun.
We'll see you at the track.
All righty.